Hi, I'm happy you're watching this video. My name is Andrei and I'm going to be an instructor today in this Java course. No matter what previous experience you have, this tutorial covers all necessary topics you need to know to start programming in Java from scratch. I created a course that helped millions of students from around 160 countries to learn Java. I published my course online on different learning platforms, but today you can watch this course completely free of charge. I just combined lessons that I published each day in one single video. We'll start from theoretical lesson about Java without any coding. After that we'll install all necessary tools to start programming in Java, and gradually we'll get to practical examples and coding exercises. Don't worry, in this course I will share a solution for all home tasks and coding exercises with you, so that you can learn topic better and ask more specific questions. I recommend you to watch video from the beginning till the end. But just in case you're already familiar with some topics, you're welcome to find agenda below this video and jump to the section you are most interested in. Through all the course I will share with you tips and best practices that I get through the years of experience while being software engineer and CEO of my own software development company. By the end of this course, you're going to have solid foundation in Java, and you will be ready to proceed with learning more advanced topics that will help you to create desktop, mobile and web applications with Java. Besides that, I will share with you a link to my own mobile applications that will help you to be prepared for an interview. Also, you can get certificate in Java from Learn IT Online University inside the app and add it to your resume. But only my students can get unlimited access to all functionality of this mobile application completely free of charge. My name is Andrei, I'm founder of my own software development company and Learn IT Online University. I hope you will enjoy this course. Let's start learning Java.
Today we won't do any coding. Today we'll have introductory lesson to let you understand what this training course is about and what we'll learn. Here's our agenda for today. So first of all, I want to be completely honest and transparent with you. Nobody would hire you just because you know Java history. But still, I think this is part of your general education as a software engineer and will be interesting for you to know. Java was started as a project called Org by James Gosling in June 1991. Gosling's goal were to implement a virtual machine and a language that had a familiar C-like notation but with greater uniformity and simplicity than C or C++. The first public implementation was Java version 1 in 1995. Org was renamed as Java because it was already a trademark by Org Technologies. Java made the promise of write once, run anywhere, with free runtimes on all popular platforms. Major web browsers soon incorporated it into their standard configuration in secure applet configuration. Java considered to be one of the most popular programming languages nowadays. A lot of people who are choosing which programming language to learn first opt for Java. Platform independence, multi-threading, security, easiness to learn, some of the reasons of this. Back that time, Sun Microsystems supported Java development. But Sun Microsystems was acquired by Oracle in January 2010. From that time, Oracle supports and develops Java as a platform. You will notice that official Java documentation is located on Oracle resources. So if you just start to learn programming, you might be wondering why you should start learning Java. What advantages does it have over other programming languages? Here are a few reasons. Probably the first reason is Java is easy to learn. Java doesn't require you to know anything about memory management to get started. You don't need to worry how to allocate memory for data, how to release memory afterwards. JVM and garbage collector are in charge of all memory management instead of you. Java is simpler. The syntax is much more readable than C, C++ or any other language. Java is strongly typed language, which catches many newbie mistakes. Java source code should be compiled to the bytecode. Java compiler won't let you to compile code which will contain broken syntax or wouldn't be executed on JVM. Also, Java compiler will point out where exactly you have mistakes. That helps a lot to junior developers. Java can do everything. By saying this, I mean with Java you'll have a tool which will allow you to create applications of any level of complexity. You will be able to implement mobile applications, desktop applications and complex enterprise solutions. Huge community. And how this can help you? Let me explain. Java has strong community support. No matter what kind of questions, doubt, or issue you have, Google can find answers for you. If not Google, then Stack Overflow, Java forums, and a lot of other communities are there to help you out. This is really the single biggest reason I suggest beginners learn to code using Java, because when you are starting to learn to program, you'll face with many different kinds of issues to understand for both programming fundamentals and Java. Because there are millions of Java developers around and big community is there to support, most likely you'll find answers quickly without getting frustrated and disappointed. Another reason to learn Java is Android. I won't lie to you because I don't know the exact numbers, but I think you would agree with me that Android is most popular operating system for mobile devices in the world. If I am not mistaken, around 70% of mobile devices are powered by Android. I rented a car recently during the business trip, and it was Android Auto inside it. I went to the electronics store and there is a Foreach with computer built in, and it was also powered by Android. What does it mean for you? That means knowing Java you have a lot of job opportunities. JVM. A lot of modern languages realize that it is a good idea to use Java Virtual Machine to execute own programs. Because it's reliable, because it works fast, etc. That's why such languages as Scala, Kotlin, Groovy also use Java Virtual Machine to execute programs. For you it means that knowing how JVM works, it would be easier to get up to speed with other languages. One of the biggest Java advantages is platform independence. Companies don't want to invest money to create programs for Mac operating system only, and after that spend more money to create applications for Windows-based systems. That's why a lot of companies opt for Java for own projects. We partially touched this topic quickly during the previous slide, but answering your question, what you will be able to implement with Java, the answer is with Java you will be able to implement mobile, desktop, and web applications. And no matter what you would read in the internet, trust me, even today companies still create desktop applications for different purposes, and Java is also one of the best options for such purposes. So today you heard a lot about JVM. Let's take a closer look what JVM, GRE, and JDK are. JVM stands for Java Virtual Machine. This is a program written in C++, which is responsible for converting bytecode to machine-specific code. JVM is the reason why Java as language considered to be platform independent. You will compile your source code to Java bytecode. After that, you execute your bytecode on JVM. And there are a lot of implementations of JVM for different operating systems. So to execute Java code on MacBook, you just need JVM for Mac operating system installed there. To run bytecode on Windows, you just need JVM for Windows operating system installed there. The JVM is used for both translate the bytecode into the machine language for a particular computer and actually execute the corresponding machine language instructions as well. Without the JVM, you can't run a Java application. GRE stands for Java Runtime Environment. GRE includes JVM in itself, plus Java binaries and classes which are needed to execute program. Back in past, I developed desktop application which I used to sell in the internet. To make this application run on the computers of my clients, I added GRE to my installation file. That's what I needed to do to not force my clients to install Java by themselves. JDK stands for Java Development Kit. JDK contains JVM and GRE plus all tools which are necessary for development of Java programs. For example, you need to have compiler to compile your Java source code to bytecode. Compiler goes with JDK, but not included in GRE. Now let's pretend you need to debug your application line by line. You have debugger in JDK, because it is not needed in GRE. Or you want to create documentation out from your source code. In JDK you have Javadoc program which will generate documentation from your source code. So if you are a developer, you need JDK. We'll download and install JDK in the next lesson. That is all what I got for you for today. Let's take a look at your homework. Your first homework wouldn't be very complicated. Here's a list of recommended literature and books to read during the training course. You can find them in the Google and download either PDF version or to buy hard copy. Here is also a chapter to read by the next lesson. During the video lessons, definitely I will cover core concepts, best practices, but still I would optionally recommend you to read books to have different point of view on the same topics. Today we have very important topic. Without this knowledge, you won't be able to proceed with this training course. Because to be able to program on Java, you need to have JDK installed on your computer. Agree? We will learn which JDK version to choose and how to make sure that Java is properly installed on your computer. The latest Java version based on today is Java version 13. Oracle has 6 months release cadence, so from now on, new version of Java will be released each 6 months. Does it mean for you that you need to learn Java each 6 months? Not necessarily. As a developer, this can be quite overwhelming. How many applications do you have to go back and to update now? Or how many servers in your data center constantly needed to be updated to the newest Java release? There are 2 things developers hate. One of them is unnecessary change. It is even crazy to think about keeping several applications or several number of servers up to date with the newest Java release. That is why the concept of an LTS was established. A Java LTS, which stands for Long-Term Support Release, is a version of Java that will remain the industry standard for several years. To give you an example of this, Java 8 was released in 2014 and its extended support will end by December 2030. Probably Java 8 is the most popular nowadays. A lot of companies still rely on it and there is no urgent need to upgrade to the newest Java version. Java 11 is the latest long-term support version based on today. For the educational purposes, I would recommend you to use the latest version of OpenJDK, which will allow you to use the most recent and up-to-date version. And to be completely honest, between version 8 and version 13, there is no dramatic difference which will be noticed by junior developers. There are some of them and we will learn them during the training course. You will also notice that you have Oracle JDK and OpenJDK available for you for download. Probably main difference for you right now is that OpenJDK is completely free, including commercial use. Oracle JDK is not free for commercial use. There are also some other differences. For example, when it comes to performance, Oracle's is much better regarding responsiveness and JVM performance. Oracle JDK is fully developed by Oracle Corporation, whereas the OpenJDK is developed by Oracle and the Java community together. So I recommend you to use OpenJDK. This will allow you to learn Java platform and to implement powerful applications. Now let me show you how to install JDK on the computer from scratch. Go to Google and search for JDK Java Net. Let's open this link. Select 13. Download these archives for Windows or Mac respectively. I'm downloading this one. Now extract archive. Let's have a look what is in here. So here we have bin folder. You can find in it all tools and programs which we need to create our Java applications. For example, here you can see Javac. This is Java compiler, which compile our source code, our files written with letters to bytecode. Here is JavaDoc, application to generate documentation from our source code. In the next lessons I will show you how it works. Here is Java application to run Java virtual machine. Our next steps, please open command line in this directory. To do this, type cmd right here and press enter. So here is our command line. Type java-version and press enter. Now you will see that you have OpenJDK version 13 here. And this is completely fine, but try to navigate one level up in your file system tree. The cd command, also known as change directory. It is a command line shell command used to change the current working directory in the various operating systems. The first single dot or period means this directory. The double dot or periods means the parent directory. The next one up the tree. Let's type cd double dot and press enter. Go ahead and type the same Java version command here. Java is not recognized as an internal or external command. Why do we see this? Because from this level we can't get access to Java program which is located in bin folder. As a software engineer, I want to be able to call Java and Java compiler on my machine from any place in my file system. To do this, I need to configure environment variables. Now I will show you how to configure environment variables on Windows machine. If you have Mac, please take a look to resources attached to this lesson. I have special written guide for you. Do mouse right click on my computer, open Properties, go to Advanced System Settings, Environment Variables. And here we are. Now, even despite this is not necessary, the rule of thumb is to create Java home variable first. This variable will refer to the JDK home folder. You can have multiple Java home variables to be able easily change Java home version on your machine, like I have here for Java of versions 8, 11 and 13. Let's create this variable. Press New button here, Java_home, and let's copy this path and paste it as a variable value. Press OK button. Now we have Java home here. Next thing to know is that Windows has path variable. Let's find it. Here it is. Path is an environment variable specifying a set of directories where executable programs are located. In general, each executing process or user session has its own path setting. Without path variable, we would need to run programs using absolute path. The path variable prevents us from having to write the entire path to a program. Let's adjust value here. Click New, type %, Java home, %, file path separator, in Windows it is \, and bin. That's it. In case you have previous Windows version, most likely you see something like this. Make sure that line ends with semicolon and write the same. So you can choose one option or another, it's up to you. And now attention! If you had your terminal opened, close it and open again to apply all changes. Let's again open terminal here. Let's go one level up. Now let's type the same Java version command. Here we are. Now we can run Java program from any directory. Let's also check version of compiler. Call javac version. Here it is. If you see version number, then everything is okay and we are good to proceed with the next lesson. Let's summarize what we have learned on this lesson. We learned how to choose JDK version, what is the difference between Oracle JDK and OpenJDK, how to install JDK on your computer, and how to configure environment variables. Let's now review your homework for the next lesson. So for the next lesson, you just need to repeat everything what we have discussed during this lesson and make sure you have JDK installed.
Hey, just wanna check how the learning is going. Hope you're enjoying the course. I spent a lot of time and did my best to create the best ever course for Java developers. I'm gonna share this video with all world for free without taking nothing in return. I would appreciate if you support me by liking and sharing this video in social networks and with your friends. Also, subscribe to this channel and enable notifications to not miss other free tutorials that I'm going to share with you. If you really like this tutorial, do not hesitate to write your comments under this video. Your feedback is the best motivation for me. Thanks in advance. And now, let's continue watching.
Today we will create our first application in Java language. Be prepared to have fun. Also in this lesson you will learn what are console applications, how to compile Java code to get bytecode, and how to execute your first program from console. Let's start. So what are console applications? Console application is an application that takes input and displays output at command line console with access to three basic data streams: standard input, standard output, and standard error. These applications don't have any graphical user interface. They are primarily used nowadays in learning purposes. So console application is a lightweight application which might be easily run in console. During this course, we'll learn tools which we have in JDK to create powerful applications. But the same as learning other human languages, the first thing you learn is alphabet. After that, knowing letters, you can create words. From words, you can create sentences. From sentences, you can build a story. The same is here. We'll start from console applications to learn alphabet and words. Here is what we are going to do today. As a software engineers, we'll create with you files with Java extension. We'll call these files source code. This is exactly files where programming code written in Java will be stored. After that, we'll ask Java compiler to compile source code to bytecode. Javac program will do this task. Javac will produce files with class extension, and Java will execute our program. What you need to understand and remember that JVM doesn't execute Java files. JVM executes class files. Probably this will help you in the future when you will troubleshoot issues in your real-life project. So now let's take a look how to create your first program, how to compile it and run. Team, please, don't be afraid. You won't use command line to write your programs on regular basis. In the next lessons we'll learn special desktop applications designed to create programs. But now I'd like to ask you again to open command line wherever you want on your computer. For example, for this lesson I created folder where I will create program together with you. Let's type cmd here to open command line. Probably you think right now, Andrei, you must be kidding me. Why do we do this? Why don't we just start work with applications which help us to create programs? The answer is, there are a few points to consider. The first one, you need to learn how to work with console, at least some basics. Because sometimes, not always, but sometimes, depending on which build tool you will use, probably you would need to work with console. And sometimes, as software engineers, you would need to write scripts which will call command line commands. Real life example. You would like to compile all Java files in your project in one archive, which will be deployed to the web server afterwards. Right after compiling, you would like to run specific files, test classes, to be sure that tests are not failing. In case tests are succeed, you finish your build process. In case there are failures in the test, you don't proceed with your build. That is one of the examples when knowledge of command line commands might come in handy. The second point to consider. Guys, you are just started learning Java. You need to understand what compilation process is, what is compilation error, and how it is different from runtime exception. That's why I ask all my students to create program in Notepad and to run it in console at least once in their lives. In some companies on the first level of interview process of junior software engineers, where you have quizzes and tests, sometimes there are also questions related to command line. We opened command line to create file with Java extension. Why we cannot just do mouse right click and create file? Because you need to enable showing of file extension first. In different Windows version it is done in slightly different way. And from default options you can create file with txt extension, which doesn't work for us. So let's create file from console because it is easier and it's the same way to create file from the terminal on different Windows versions. Actually, I know at least few ways how to create file from command prompt, but let me show one to you. Type the following: notepad HelloWorld.java. When dialog is popped up, click yes. Now we see file with Java extension created here. In case you have Mac, just type like this: touch HelloWorld.java. The file will be created. Let's write our first program. We'll cover right now basic syntax. So each Java file can have only one public class or interface. We'll cover more modifiers during OOP topic. But for now, just try to understand that in case class is public, client can access it from anywhere, including our JVM which needs to access this class. The name of public class should be the same as the name of a Java file. This is the rule. In other case, you would have compilation error. Java is case sensitive, so hello world written with capital H at the beginning is completely different from hello world with H lowercase. Java is a case sensitive because it uses a C-style syntax. Case sensitivity is useful because it lets you infer what a name means based on its case. For example, the Java standard for class names is uppercasing the first letter of each word. For example, like integer, string, etc. The standard for variable and method names is lowercase the first letter of the first word and uppercasing all other first letters. Number, println, check error, etc. And the standard for constants is all uppercase with underscores. Some constant. Like this. So after hello world, let's put curly braces here. In Java, curly braces define scope. Here is the scope of the class. In a few seconds you will see scope of the method. Each outer scope includes inner scope. Thus, variable declared in the class scope is visible in the method scope, but variables declared in the method scope not visible in class scope. Now we need to create entry point for our program. By convention, this method is publicly accessible. So let's type here public. It is static. We'll cover more what static is during OOP topic. It does return nothing. That's why return type is void. And it has name main by convention. This method takes as a parameter array of strings. In the next lessons we'll cover in details what arrays are. As of now, consider array of strings as a sequence of strings. A parameter is a variable in the method definition. When a method is called, the arguments are the data you pass into the method's parameters. Hope this doesn't bring even more confusion. I just want you also to learn the right wording to make your colleagues understand you. Public static void main method, which takes array of strings, is our entry point to each Java program. JVM knows that it should call exactly this method and begin program execution from this point. Let's define scope of this method here. In this method we'll write code which will print hello world text to console output. We'll write system.out. Out represents output stream. Output stream has such behavior as printing to console. Println method prints to console and terminates the line. Each statement in Java ends with semicolon. Println can take strings as arguments. Let's pass string hello world into it. In Java, string literals are written inside double quotes. And one more new word. Literal. Literal is a notation for representing a fixed value in source code. Here we have string literal. Now let's save this file. Let's go back to the console. And now let's compile our program. Javac helloworld.java. If you don't see any messages, that means compilation was successful. And you can notice that new file is appeared in our folder. This file has the same name as our Java file, but has different extension. This file contains bytecode for our Java virtual machine. Now let's execute bytecode on our JVM. Let's type Java hello world and press enter. In this case you don't need specify extension for the file, since Java expects only class files. And you see output here, hello world. Congratulations, you have just written your first console application. What are common mistakes? You can see compilation error after calling javac. And you can see runtime errors. Let me reproduce it with you. Let's pretend you name your public class incorrectly. Not the same as Java file name. Let's put capital D at the end. And also, let's pretend you did a typo in main method name. Let's save the file. Let's call javac now. We see compilation error. So code is not compiled to bytecode. Always read these error messages. They can help you to fix issues. For example, like here. Public class hello world should be declared in the file with the same name. We'll just rename our public class. Let's compile it one more time. But not forget to save the file before compilation process. So now everything is okay, and we don't see any compilation errors. And by the way, to call commands which I just used, I use up arrow. Let's run it again. And here we have runtime exception. What does it mean? Code is compiled, but error happened during the program execution. JVM tried to find main method, but couldn't. Hope this information will help you to troubleshoot issues in case you will have ones. Let's recap one more time what we have learned today. Now you know what console applications are. You understand basic Java syntax, you learned how to create HelloWorld application in Java. Also you saw what compilation errors and runtimes errors are. You can compile and execute your programs from the console. And here's your homework. Try to repeat everything what we did during the lesson by yourself. Also, I'd like you to write bat or shell file which will compile your source code and will start your Java application. Try to do it by yourself with help of the internet if needed. And we'll check your homework in the next lesson together. And read Java code convention from the link here. Pay extra attention to naming convention. Java naming convention is a rule to follow as you decide what to name your identifiers such as class, package, variable, constant, method, etc. But it's not forced to follow. So it's known as convention, not rule. These conventions are suggested by several Java communities such as Sun Microsystems and Netscape. All the classes, interfaces, packages, methods, and fields of Java programming language are given according to the Java naming conventions. If you fail to follow these conventions, it may generate confusion. In the lesson we'll review solution of your homework. You had task to create bat or sh file to compile your HelloWorld application and run it. Let's review the solution for this homework. Here we have HelloWorld application from previous lesson. Here is my bat file. Let me show you how it works. Let me open command line here and run it. Here it is. You see that source code has been compiled and executed in command line. And you also noticed that after execution, class file has been removed. Let's write this script together from scratch. Type this: notepad homework.bat. Our first command would be echo off. Add echo off. Echo is a command to display message in standard output. To prevent echoing a particular command in a batch file, we have to write an add sign in front of the command. We want to prevent echoing of all commands in our file to see only Java application output. That's why I wrote add echo off at the beginning of the file. Next command will be familiar to you. It's javac **java. Asterisk here is meta symbol to describe all possible files that have Java extension. Next command, java HelloWorld. And at the end, let's delete class file to keep our work directory clean. del **class. Asterisk here is meta symbol to describe all possible files that have class extension. That's it. Let's save it. I press Ctrl+S to save the file, and let's run it from here. It works as expected. In this video we'll discuss how we are going to communicate to make sure that learning process is efficient. We'll review where to ask questions, how to ask questions, and we'll review communication channels which exist so you could reach out to me. To start with, I would like to emphasize the importance of establishing communication during this course. Because one of the main differences between offline and online learning is availability of the tutor. When I teach offline, I can just take my student's laptop and either to help him, her to fix code or understand the root cause of the issue and help student to understand better what is wrong. During online learning, it doesn't work that way. So what I would suggest? I encourage you to ask as many questions as you can. You can leave all your questions in the comments right under the video. In case there will be interesting questions, I will even make a video answers to some of those. But to be able to answer your questions in an efficient way, please
Put as much details to your question as you can. For example, here are 2 examples which describes the same issue. The first one. Andrii, could you please help? When I try to run this code, I have compilation error. What should I do? So here are a few questions. What is this code? Code from lecture, or from your homework, or from examples provided? When you see compilation error, how does the error message look like? And since I don't have physical access to your laptop, answering your question can take longer than it was initially expected by you. Let's review the second example. Andrii, when I try to execute this code, I see compilation error, scanner cannot be resolved to a type. Where I should look at to fix this issue? From this message, it's clear to me that most likely you forgot to write an import statement on the top of your Java file. And it will be easy for me to help you with answer and code example to fix. So hope you feel the difference.
What other communications channels you can use?
I'm here to help you to find your first job in software engineering. We can connect in LinkedIn and I can confirm your skills on your request. Why you need to use LinkedIn? Recruiters in IT consultancy often use the social network while looking for candidates. So feel free to add me to your network and we will stay in touch. Also, in case you will have some ideas to run your own startup, do not hesitate to reach out directly to me in LinkedIn. My company is always looking for fresh ideas and we can think through how we can build win-win collaboration. Instagram. I love Instagram. We can use Instagram for informal communication. We'll become friends. Who knows, probably in the future you will implement new Facebook and I will be able to apply for a job in your company. Or we will build something together. I do love traveling and probably sometime in the future I will be able to meet anyone who are watching this video in their country. Or you can visit me if you wish. Subscribe to me on Instagram. You can find my nickname here. Also important thing to know, in case new course will be started or some events are going to happen, like online streams on YouTube or something else, you will learn this from the posts or from the Instagram stories. And definitely Facebook. I don't spend here too much time and I'm replying faster in Instagram, but in case you don't have Instagram and still thinking how to reach out to me, you can find me in Facebook. To support our community we also have Telegram channel. In Telegram channel you will find latest updates about promotional deals, about special offers, discounts, job opportunities and lots more. Subscribe to our Telegram channel now to not miss important updates and news. That's all what I wanted to share with you guys. So now I am sure that we are able to build communication which will help us to build our learning process even in more efficient manner. Today we will learn a tool which will help us create our amazing applications. I'm talking about integrated development environment. Besides that, according to our agenda for today, we will learn what are most popular IDE for development of Java-based applications. We will download Eclispe and we'll learn how to configure it. So what is integrated development environment? IDE is a software application that provides comprehensive facilities to computer programmers for software development. An IDE normally consists of at least a source code editor, build automation tools, and a debugger. Some IDEs, such as NetBeans and Eclipse, contain the necessary compiler. Integrated development environments are designed to maximize programmer productivity. Reducing setup time can increase developer productivity, especially in cases where learning to use the IDE is faster than manually integrating and learning all of the individual tools. The most popular IDEs for Java development are Eclipse, Inteliji IDEA, NetBeans, and Android Studio for Android projects. I've worked a lot with each of these. To be honest, I can conclude that they are similar. The only difference is the way how to configure your project. The same buttons located in different places. That would be my short answer. But still, my preferable option would be Eclipse for Java Enterprise Edition developers. Why? There are a few reasons. Some of them. It is completely free of charge. The same as NetBeans. You can find that IDEA community version is also free of charge. But later during the course you will notice that in Community Edition there is a lack of support of Java Enterprise Edition. And you would need either to buy licensed version of IDEA, so-called Ultimate Edition,
or looking for some workarounds. If you're a student, you can get Ultimate Edition license free of charge, but again, it's free only for educational purposes but not for commercial use. In many companies, Eclipse is a standard software package for Java software engineers, because it's powerful for creation of any kind of applications and it's free. Huge community. In the internet you will find a lot of support how to deal with different configuration issues in case you'll have them in your project while working with Eclipse. You can easily extend your IDE with extensions and plugins. For example, you can add plugin which will check your code style, you can add plugin to test your test code coverage, you can add plugin which will allow you to style icons, background and fonts in the Eclipse and much more. Eclipse has tools to work with Java for Enterprise. This will come in handy later in this training program. Now let's together download and install Eclipse on your computer. We will configure your workspace and will create HelloWorld Java project in Eclipse. And you will see how IDE makes our life easier. Let's make a Google search like this. Eclipse for Java EE developers download. Click on the first link. Here is a warning message which tells us that this is not the latest package. Let's take a look at the newest version. And here it is. Download archive for Windows, Linux or Mac. Press download button. When we have downloaded Eclipse, extract all files wherever you want on your computer. Now start Eclipse. When you start Eclipse, you are asked to indicate a workspace directory. The workspace is a directory on the disk where the Eclipse platform and all the installed plugins store preferences, configurations, and temporary information. Subsequent Eclipse invocations will use the storage to restore the previous state. Each time you start Eclipse, you can create a new workspace directory or indicate an existing one. You can create many workspaces, each one dedicated to some activity. For example, I want to create a workspace dedicated to this training course here. Let me call it Learn IT Fundamentals. Let's press Launch button now. Let's make it full screen. Here is welcome page. Let's navigate directly to the workbench. Just press here. And here's your workspace. It comprises different widgets and views. You can configure your workspace as you wish. You can move all these widgets anywhere. Let's leave it here. Here you can choose your perspective. An Eclipse perspective is the name given to an initial collection and arrangements of views and an editor area. For example, take a look how current perspective is look like. Let's also press File, New. Can you see this list? It contains Maven project, Dynamic Web project, EGB project, etc. Now let's open another perspective. Let's open not Java Enterprise Edition, but Java Perspective. Here it is. Open. You see that the set of widgets is different now. Let's open again File, New, and here we see different list with Java project on top of it. In Eclipse you have multiple perspectives and you can switch between them easily here. You have separate perspective for debugging, for database development, etc. Here's your Project Explorer view. Here you will find hierarchical representation of your projects and source code. In case you lost some view or would like to open a new one, just press Window, Show View, Other. Here you can find all available views which you can add to your workspace. Now let's create our HelloWorld Java project. You can click either here or go to File, New, Java project. Let's go over project configurations here. Type any project name you would like. I will type Learn IT Fundamentals. Which Java runtime environment you would like to use. You can select one of the predefined options in Eclipse. I would select the one JRE which already installed on my computer. We can click Finish, but for the sake of the interest, let's click Next to learn what other configurations available for us. Here you can see many other configurations. For example, src would be considered as your source folder. A source folder is a path which is marked by Eclipse as containing Java sources which are needed to be compiled. You can also see that you can configure default output folder where all files with class extension will be stored. In the Libraries tab, you can add additional external libraries, but we don't need them now. We will cover this part of configuration deeper later in this course. Let's just click Finish now. Eclipse will ask us how we want to name our module. Java Modules is a new feature which we presented first time in Java 9 via the Java Platform Module system. A Java module is a mechanism to package up your Java application and Java packages into Java modules. A Java module can specify which of Java packages it contains that should be visible to other Java modules using this module. But with respect to our agenda for today, I suggest to come back to modules a bit later. Just click Don't Create. Your project is created now. And you remember that you need to create a class. So let's create it now. Let's expand your project. Do mouse right click on the src source folder. New. Class. Name of the class, HelloWorld. It has public modifier. Object is always superclass of each type in Java. We'll discuss this on OOP topic. We can also create a stub of the main method. Just check this checkbox. And the last but not the least configuration, package name. Package in Java is a mechanism to encapsulate a group of classes, subpackages and interfaces. Packages are used for preventing naming conflicts. Potentially your application might have user class. And the library which you are using in your application might also contain user class. How we can say that your user and user from external library are different classes, and we need to use user from external library. The full name of the class consists of package name plus class name. For example, com.berg HelloWorld will be one class. com.google HelloWorld will be completely different class. That's why for the package names, reversed order of domain name is used. Why domain name? Because it's unique. Also, packages are used for making searching, locating and usage of classes, interfaces, enumerations and annotations easier. Later we'll learn that we can restrict access from different packages to the classes inside other packages. Let's create package following with this pattern. com, itbulls, and your last name, and press Finish button. You see package declaration goes on top of the file here. During the course we'll learn with you hotkeys. For example, Ctrl+D will delete the line. Let's press Ctrl+D to remove this single line to do comment. Eclipse has autosuggestion support. What is autosuggestion? Let's start typing here system. C. Press Ctrl+space. Now you see this drop-down list. Eclipse is trying to guess what you would like to type here. Select type which you need from the list. Press enter. Type dot. And again, autosuggestion. I will go with out here. Press enter. Dot. Start typing print. And here's our method. Let's write string literal here, hello world. Asterisk near the file name means the file is not saved. Press Ctrl+S to save the file. You can run your program in different ways. First option for you is mouse right click, run as, Java application. The second option is to find this icon here and again, run as, Java application. And the third option is hotkey, Ctrl+F11. Let's run our program now. And here we have output. Hello world. Congratulations. One more trick. For system out you can use something like this. Just type sysout and press Ctrl+space. You'll get system out println. And now let's recap what we have learned today. After this lesson we know what is integrated development environment, what are most popular IDEs for Java development, how to configure Eclipse on your computer. You learned the concept of packages and created your first project in Eclipse. And now your homework. Download IDE. You can choose whatever IDE you wish, install it on your computer, and create HelloWorld project in your IDE. In this lecture we'll learn with you what comments are and what type of comments are available in Java source code. And apart from that, we'll talk together regarding tips and best practices while using comments. First of all, let's come up with comments definition here. The Java comments are statements that are not executed by JVM. The comments can be used to provide information or explanation about the variable, method, class, or any statement. It can also be used to hide program code temporarily. Comments often used to leave so-called to-do comments, mentions to not forget to restructure code or to add something in the future. There are three types of comments in Java: single line, multi-line, and Java doc. Let's take a closer look on how comments look like in our Eclipse workspace. Here's our HelloWorld application, which we all know. Let's add single line comment right after console output. / to do, add more code here in the future. By the way, in Eclipse, if you want to find all to-do comments in your code, just go to Window, Show View, Tasks. Here it is. Just don't forget to save your file before that. Eclipse parses all to-do comments and lists it here. I used this tool many times. There is a hotkey for single line comment. For example, you can comment this code line by pressing Ctrl+/ and uncomment in the same way. You can select few lines, for example the whole method, and comment it the same way with hotkeys. And uncomment it if you wish with the hotkeys. Now let's create multi-line comment. Type / and enter. You see how Eclipse helps us to write multi-line comment. You can type something like this: please do not remove this code. And now let me show you Java doc. The first thing you should know about Java doc is that this type of comments can be converted to nice looking HTML pages. In JDK we have Java doc program which generates these HTML pages out of our source code. Let me show you example. Here is official Java doc of string class. You can see class description, constructor, fields, methods. All of them are clickable. For example, let me click here. You can generate the same documentation. Let's learn how to do this. Let's create Java documentation for our main method. / enter. And here your comment goes. The entry point to the program. You can see this tag param. It is used to add parameter to parameter section in Java doc. I will share with you more tags to learn in the homework section. Meanwhile, let's add clarification here. Input, arguments. Let's also add Java doc to our class. You can see author tag here. I will leave the next comment here. HelloWorld application. Now we can save the file. We are good to generate Java doc. To generate Java doc from Eclipse, press Project, Generate Java doc. Here you see configurations. You can configure output folder for your documentation. I will leave default settings here and will press Finish. Now you can see that doc directory appeared in our project. Let's expand it. Find index.html file and open it. You can open it in any browser or you can just use built-in Eclipse browser. Right-click, Open with Web Browser. And here we have our documentation. Congratulations! This is your first documentation to your first program. You see our class here. Here is our class description, author, constructors, methods. Here is our main method description. And here's our arguments description. Let me share with you tips and best practices of using comments in Java. The first thing you need to remember, in case you want to comment chunk of code to hide this code, just remove it. If you don't need this code, that means you don't need this code. I've faced with this so many times when developers comment their or others' code and leave it just in case. Be smart. You will learn how to use version control systems, and believe me, there is no such cases when you need to leave code just in case, especially when you have version control system. Because this will end up having a lot of commented code which nobody knows what is it for, and you won't be able to support it. My next advice: always remember that comments require maintenance. You need to keep them up to date and relevant. Don't forget about this. I'm trying to be a good tutor, and I'm saying that writing Java doc is great, but also I have to prepare you for real life. In real life, you would notice that not all developers write comments. Why? Because sometimes they are not needed. Because you have live documentation. Your unit tests. Unit tests are updated as you change your code. We'll discuss in later lessons TDD approach and goals of unit testing. But for now, just remember, in case you have solid unit test code coverage and you follow Java naming conventions and choose meaningful names for variables and methods, sometimes JavaDoc in this case is redundant. Today we learned what comments are. Now we also know what types of comments we have in Java. You saw how to generate JavaDocs from the source code, and also I shared with you tips and best practices of comments usage in real life. And your homework. Create a JavaDoc for your HelloWorld application and generate documentation from your source code. Also, during the lesson you saw only few JavaDoc tags. There are no need to go over each of them because most of them self-describing. You know already how to use them. Just take a look through this table to know what other tags you can use.
Hey guys, I just wanna make an announcement. This course you are watching is actually a beginning of the most complete Java guide of mine that is called From Zero to First Job. While this video contains really a lot of useful information, we still have a lot of things to learn. In the full course, we go way beyond the topics we learned in this tutorial. So, if you are serious about learning Java and get your job as a software engineer, my full course will help you, and I highly encourage you to enroll in it. My full course is used to prepare software engineers for real work in software development companies. The full course contains thousands of source code examples, interview tests, coding exercises based on real-life cases and experience of developers from my software development company, and lots more. The full Java course is your opportunity to start your career as a Java developer. It is created to provide you with all necessary knowledge that are required for Java developers. Moreover, at the end of the full course, you're going to get a certificate of completion that you can add to your resume and to your LinkedIn profile. In case that for some reasons you don't like the full course and you are not happy with it, there is 30 days money-back guarantee. You can easily ask for a refund and it will be done. So don't worry about this at all. Hurry up to get special discounts. In case you are interested, I put a link down below. So, hope to see you on the course.
Today we have a very important topic. We'll learn how data is stored in Java programs. We'll talk with you in details about primitive types. Also, we'll discuss what variables are. After this lesson, you will have all necessary knowledge regarding primitive types to proceed with your Java education. We'll start this lesson from theory, and after that we'll play with primitive types and variables in Eclipse. It will be very important to understand how you can convert primitive types between each other. First of all, let's try to understand what data types are available for us in Java, how we can store information in our programs to be able to work with it in the future. There are two major groups of data types in Java. They are primitive types, reference types. Reference types consist of classes, annotations, interfaces, enumerations, arrays. We will not discuss reference types today in the lesson, but we will talk about them later in the course. Today we will talk about primitive types. They are integers, floating point numbers, booleans, characters. Probably you're already interested. What is the difference between primitive and reference types. There are many differences between them, and we'll learn all of them as we keep learning Java. But the main difference is that primitive variables store the actual values, whereas reference variables store the addresses of the objects they refer to. The primitive types in Java are analogs to the simple types found in most non-object-oriented languages. If Java object-oriented language, why then we still need to use primitives sometimes over objects and reference types? There is only one reason for this. It's efficiency. Making the primitive types into objects would have degraded performance too much. As you become more mature programmer, you will find how to use properly primitive types and reference types. But right now, let's review each primitive type in detail. Here is the table which will help you to learn and understand all primitive types. You can find next columns here: type name, size, minimum value, maximum value, and wrapper type. Primitive wrapper class is wrapper that encapsulates or wraps primitive data types so that these can be used to create objects. Why do we need this? Objects might have their own behavior and methods. We will use objects in Java collections, for example. The simplest example is that primitive type int just storing value in the variable. Integer not only storing value, but has its own behavior. For example, integer object can compare itself with other integers, which provides necessary application programming interface to create self-sorting collections. This is just one example. From this table you can see that main difference between simple integers is the amount of memory allocated for the variables. This also impacts value range of each primitive type. Taking into account that data in computer stored in binary format, the amount of bits allocated to the variable tells us what range of data we can store in it. We will learn number systems in the next lessons, and you will understand why in 1 byte, which is equal to 8 bits, we can store values from -128 to 127. You can see that 2 bytes allocated for short, 4 bytes allocated for int, 8 bytes allocated for long. If we are talking about floating point numbers, then we need to know that for each float variable 4 bytes are allocated, and for double 8 bytes are allocated. The interesting thing how much memory we need to allocate for boolean value. The right answer would be here that size of the boolean is platform dependent. Why? Because to store true or false, which in binary format 1 or 0, it's enough even 1 bit. The problem is that not always you can reserve exactly 1 bit for the variable. Most likely this will be 1 byte. Characters. We need characters to be able to describe all symbols of Unicode, Cyrillic, special characters, etc. We have 2 bytes for char primitive type. This gives us the range from 0 to 65,535. Each value will represent the sequence number of character according to Unicode table. You might be wondering why short type also have 2 bytes allocated but have different range of values. In Java you can't declare signed or unsigned variables. This is managed on JVM level. So char has the same amount of bytes allocated, but just because it's unsigned, it has different range. Probably you already heard that Java is strongly typed language. Part of Java's safety and robustness comes from this fact. What does it mean? It means that every variable has a type, every expression has a type, and each type is strictly defined. Also, all assignments, including parameter passing to the method call, are checked for the type compatibility. The Java compiler checks all expressions and parameters to ensure that the types are compatible. In case of any type mismatch, program simply won't be compiled. We will also learn in this lesson how type conversion works in Java. So what is variable? Variable is a piece of memory that can contain a data value. You can see that each variable has data type. Even when you create variable with var keyword, compiler identifies type of this variable. For the variable name usually used nouns started from the small letter. You can't use keywords for the variable names. What are keywords? For example, int, byte, short, class, public, package. These are all keywords. Keyword is a word with a predefined meaning in Java programming language syntax. I will share with you link to all keywords after this lesson so you could learn them. There is no need to go over each of those right now. Now let's practice. We'll take a look how to declare variables of specific types in Java. For this lesson I created new class with name primitive types in the package primitives. Let's declare a variable of specific type. Byte b equals 1. So here is variable declaration. Short s. And here is variable initialization. S equals 2. You can declare and initialize variable in one line. Int I equals 3. Long L equals 4. Let's proceed. Here is a char variable. Char C equals A. You can notice that characters literals annotated with single quotes. Boolean literals only true and false. Boolean bool equals true. And now let's create float variable. Float f equals 1.2. Compilation error. What's wrong? If you would hover over value, you will see the reason. The issue is type mismatch. Can't convert from double to float. You should know that floating point number literals by default has type double. And you can't convert from double to float because double requires more memory allocated than float. Does it make sense now? To tell compiler that this is float, we are using F letter. You can use capital F letter if you wish, that would mean the same. Talking about types of literals, it is worth to mention that all integer literals has int type by default. Let's have a look at this example. Long L2 equals 2 billion. By the way, you can see that you can separate digits with underscore to increase readability. You can see that there is no error right now, because int literal is still within int range. But let me add few more zeros here. And you see compilation error. Why? Because literal of type int is out of range. What to do in this case? Just tell compiler that this literal has type long. How? Just put L letter at the end like this. Let's also create double variable. Double D equals 1.3. As you can see, there is no errors here. Previously we discussed that you can declare an initialize variable with var keyword like this. Var v equals 1. In this case, compiler will help us to identify type of this variable. So after first initialization, you can assign only integers to this variable. You can't assign boolean or floating point numbers because this variable has int type right now. And now we'll learn primitive types conversion. When we are talking about primitive types conversion, just keep in mind boxes. You always can put smaller box into bigger one. That means you can always put value of 2 bytes into 4 bytes. Int i3 equals s. S is short here. You can put the value of 1 byte into 4 bytes variable. You can also convert int to char. Char c2 equals 100. In this case, char variable will be initialized with character which has sequence number 100 in Unicode table. Let's check what this character is. System out println c2. This would be D character. The same conversion rules are also applied if you have double variable with 8 bytes allocated and you want to assign to it int which is 4 bytes. Double D2 equals I3. You can assign 8 bytes long to 8 bytes double. D2 equals L. All conversions examples which we just saw are examples of widening conversion. In most cases, widening conversion happens without losing data, with some exceptions. A widening conversion of an int or a long value to float or of a long value to double may result in loss of precision. That is, the result may lose some of the least significant bits of the value. In this case, the resulting floating point value will be a correctly rounded version of the integer value, using IEEE 754 round to nearest mode. If we would talk about narrowing conversion, it can't be done automatically. For example, if I would try to assign int variable to byte variable like this, b equals i3. We see here a compilation error because compiler can't convert int to byte. What we can do as programmers, only in case when we need this, we can tell compiler that we know what we do, and tell compiler to calm down, and we are sure that this is byte. Just type in parentheses byte. You can do the same way with all other narrowing conversion. You might be wondering if all integer literals have int type by default, why we don't have compilation error when we assign int literal to byte like this, byte b2 equals 10. We don't have compilation error because compiler can read literals value during the compilation process and identify that this value is within the byte range. But if we would add additional zeros here, we would see compilation error. Now I can put byte here, but what would happen if I would try to print byte to console? Your best guess? Sysout b true. This situation called overflow. When an integer overflows, it rolls over to the minimum value and begins counting up from there. You know that max positive byte value is 127. Let's put 128 here and see what it would print to us. Minus 128. Be careful with conversion from double to long. Even despite 8 bytes allocated for double the same as for long, the integers and floating point numbers stored in different way in memory. Conversion from type double to type long requires a non-trivial translation from 64-bit floating point value to the 64-bit integer representation. Depending on the actual runtime value, information may be lost. That's because floating point numbers and integers stored in different way in Java memory. Let's consider this example. We have this long number. Let's convert this value to double and then back to long. Do you see the difference between long and double converted back to long? Just take this into account when converting long to double and vice versa. And probably the last thing which I would like to cover with you for today is autoboxing and unboxing. At the beginning of this lesson you saw that each primitive type has its wrapper type. Autoboxing is automatic conversion that the Java compiler makes between the primitive types and their corresponding object wrapper classes. For example, integer i4 equals 1. So here you can see that int was autoboxed to integer. If the conversion goes the other way, this is called unboxing. Int i5 equals i4. Here you can see that integer was unboxed to int. And now let's recap what we have learned today. After this lesson you know what primitive types are, what variables are, you know rules for conversion between primitive types, and you saw what autoboxing and unboxing is. And now your homework. Read books, read chapters about primitives, learn Java keywords, and take a look at Oracle documentation regarding primitives conversion. In this lesson we will learn with you number systems. We'll discuss today why we need to understand different number systems. We'll learn what binary, octal and hexadecimal number systems are. And we'll learn how we can use binary, octal and hexadecimal literals in Java source code. Let's start. Before we jump to binary number system discussion, let's try to understand why do we need to know number systems. The human language consists of words and characters. This type of data is not suitable for computers. When we enter data, the data is converted into electronic pulse. Each pulse is identified as code and the code is converted into numeric format. It gives each number, character and symbol a numeric value, number, that a computer understands. One of the skills which is useful to programmers is understanding of relationship between number bases. You won't use binary, octal or hexadecimal format on daily basis, but this is important part of your general education as software engineer. Because sometimes in JDK in source code you will find hexadecimal literals, and you need to be prepared to understand the source code. I will try to explain to you different number systems with examples as easy as possible. Hope examples will help you to understand the topic. Let's start from binary number system. Binary number system radix is 2. Binary digits can only be 0 or 1. Let's take a look at this binary number. I also identified that this number has base 2. As an exercise, let's convert this binary number into decimal format, which we are all used to. To convert to decimal format, let's split these digits like this. We have ranks now, which are started from 0 and from the right to left. In each rank you have to do following calculations. Multiply the number in each rank by base of number system in the power of rank. For example, let's start from left to right. 1 is the number here. Let's multiply 1 by base of the number system, which is 2 as we discussed, in the power of the rank, which is 3 in this case. So it will be 1 multiplied by 8. After we are done with similar calculations for each rank, let's add these numbers together. Here we have 8 plus 0 plus 2 plus 1. So this number in binary format equals to 11 in decimal format. Does it make sense now? Octal number system. Octal number system radix is 8. Notice how in each of these number systems the number of digits contained within the system is name of the system. Base 2 has 2 digits, base 8 has 8 digits, and so on. Just remember that each system starts counting with 0. So let's convert now this number with base 8 to decimal format. The same algorithm. Let's draw lines to see ranks. Starting from left, we have 7 multiplied by base of number system, which is 8, in the power of rank, and so on. Let's add these numbers together. Here it is. We converted octal number to decimal. You can use online converters to verify. Hexadecimal number system has radix 16, and 16 numbers from 0 to 9, and after that we are using letters A, B, C, D, E, F, which are according to decimal number systems equals to 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 respectively. Let's convert this hexadecimal number to decimal. We have base 16, and calculations are pretty straightforward for you. Now let's have a look how we can write binary, octal and hexadecimal literals in Java. So everything is easy here. Binary, octal and hexadecimal integer literals have different prefixes. Let's write here integer in decimal format. Int dec equals 152. This is a decimal format. If you want to write integer in binary format, just use special prefix. Int bin equals 0 b 100 11 3 zeros. Octal number started with 0 prefix like this. Int oct equals 0 to 130. And hexadecimal number started with 0x prefix. Int hex equals 0x98. You can use letters here if you want to express another value. Let's print all these numbers to console in decimal format. These variables represent the same number in decimal format. Let's recap what we have learned today. In this lesson we have learned what number systems are. We know how to convert from binary, octal and hexadecimal systems to decimal. We know how to use binary, octal and hexadecimal literals in Java. And now your homework. Hope it will be easy and fun for you. Just try to find out what decimal number is encoded in hexadecimal name of rock band AC/DC. In this lesson we'll learn more about arrays in Java. Here's our agenda for today. We'll discuss everything about arrays today, including what runtime errors might happen during interaction with them. Also we'll talk about multi-dimensional arrays. And I will show you how you can use arrays class to perform standard manipulations with arrays. Before we give definition to arrays, let's try to understand what do we need arrays for. Pretend you're implementing software for a travel agency, and you want to allow administrator to see list of people who bought trip to Spain for specific date. You need to get this information from database and group all users in one place in your program to show them to your administrator. For such purposes you can group all users in an array. So what is array? Array is an object which contains elements of similar data types and support access to them by index. Accessing each of the element in the array by its index for the constant amount of time, that's what we love arrays for. Just remember that indices in array start from 0. That means if array size is 9, the last index in this array is 8. If you want to compare arrays in Java and in other languages, be aware that there are some differences. For example, the important one is that in Java array size is fixed. Once array is created, you can't change size of an array. Now let's take a look how to work with arrays in Java source code. I prepared for this lesson before video recording, so we don't spend time during the lesson on typing code. I created this class beforehand and you can focus directly on the examples. You can declare array variable like this. Type of elements in your array, square brackets, and variable name. There is also another way to declare array variable. Type of elements in your array, variable name, and square brackets. You can use the one you would like the most, but I would recommend you to use the first declaration. In my humble opinion, it is more readable, because you instantly see that this variable is array of ints, but not like you are noticing that this variable is int, and after that you realized that this is array of ints. Now let's initialize this variable. This variable equals new, type of the elements in array, square brackets, and 10 inside the square brackets. New keyword tells JVM to allocate memory for the new object and return reference to this object. And in square brackets I indicate size of my array. This array has size 10. You can check array size with length property of the array, like this. And let's run this program. The length property of the array will tell us the size of the specific array. To get access to the element in the array, you can use its index. Let's print to console the first element of this array. Let me comment this line first, and uncomment this line. You know this command, and here we are retrieving the first element of the array by its index. You remember that index of first element in array is 0. Let's run our program. You see that the first element is 0. Why it is 0 if I didn't put 0 in this array? That is because each data type in Java has its own default value. For integers, it's 0. Let's take a look at default double value. I created array of doubles here. Let me uncomment this line and run the program. For double, default value is 0.0. What about booleans? Here is similar example with booleans. And run the program. For booleans the default value is false. Since primitives are not actually objects on their face in Java, then they must be initialized by default, because semantically they can never be empty. Primitive variables are not the references to objects. Each primitive variable stores a value in itself. Now let's take a look what will happen if I would use index which doesn't exist in array. You saw that this array has size 10. Then the last index in this array is 9. I will try to print to console element with index 10 in this array. What will happen? Runtime exception called array index out of bounds exception. I tried to get element from array with non-existing index. Always remember that the last index of the array is array size subtract 1, because indices are started from 0. Now I want to show you array literals. If you already know size of an array and variables, you can use array literals like this. Declare array variable first, and then use braces to list all elements of an array. Now let's talk about multidimensional arrays. Essentially, there is no such construction as multidimensional array. Technically, it's properly to say that you can create array of arrays, thus implement matrix in your program. For example, let's create array which will contain int arrays. You declare a variable first, this is int array type, and this is array. So you have array of int arrays. Here we have variable name, and this is array literal. So you use braces to declare your array, and inside this array you use array literals to instantiate other arrays. In multidimensional arrays you can get access to specific element by index of the array, that will be index of the row, and index of the element in that array, that will be column index. Just like this. Here is variable of our multidimensional array. This 0 refers to index of the array, this is our first array, and this number refers to the element in this array. So basically the first number indicates row, and the second number indicates column. Let's run this program. Here it is. You can instantiate multidimensional array specifying just its size, without array literals. In this case I specify just array size. Let me print to console the first element of this array. It is null. Why? Because arrays are reference types and not primitives. If you have array of arrays, the default value of each array variable will be null. Because all arrays are not instantiated yet, and there is no array object in memory for the reference. I can specify size of each inner array like this. Now all inner arrays will be instantiated. And when I will print array object to console, I will see something like this. What is this, and why do we see this? We'll discuss during the learning of the OOP topic, when we will take a look at object class and default implementation of toString method for all objects. In JDK we have special methods to perform basic operations with arrays. Let me show you how you can easily print arrays to console. Just type system out println, next, type arrays, like this, and call toString method. Pass reference to the array object as argument to this method. Let's run this program. Here you can see values from this array. Here are they. And now, for example, I want to sort values in the array. Let's type like this. Arrays sort, and pass the reference to array. And now let's print the same array to console one more time. You see? Magic happened. So what does this arrays mean? Arrays is the class in JDK which contains various methods for manipulating arrays, such as sorting and searching, for example. This class is located in Java util package. Also, I want to draw attention to one thing, that after we wrote arrays here, Eclipse automatically added import statement on the top of our Java file. What is import statement in Java? Import statement is a convenience to the programmer and is not technically needed for the programs. With import statement you bring into visibility certain classes or entire packages. As soon as you imported class in your Java file, you can refer to the class directly by using only class name. Here you can see that Eclipse helped me to import Java util arrays class. What if I wouldn't have this import statement? Let me just delete it. I saved the file. and you see compilation error here. Compiler can't understand to which arrays class am I referring to here, but I can tell compiler that full class name Java util arrays, and error is gone. Compiler understood that I'm referring to class from JDK here. If we are going to refer to dozen classes in our application, the import statement will save a lot of time and typing also. And also one more tip for the future. In case you see some errors in your source code, just hover mouse over error or set cursor in the place of error and press Ctrl+1 and see what Eclipse will suggest you to fix the error. In this case, Eclipse suggested me to add import statement. Just select what you need and press enter. Do you see this? Import statement for arrays type appeared again on the top of our file. I save file to remove compilation error. All basic classes such as wrappers of primitive types are included in package Java lang. Import statement for Java lang package is implicitly added by compiler to all Java files. So this declaration is redundant. You saw only two methods from arrays so far. Now I will teach you what all developers should know. You have to know how to learn and investigate source code. Just hold Ctrl button, hover over class name, and do mouse left click. If you are doing this first time in the Eclipse, most likely you will see something like this. This means you don't have source code attached. Let's attach source code together. Press Attach Source button, External Location, External File, and now please go to your JDK folder and find lib folder in it. You see I am in my JDK folder, and in lib folder which is inside JDK. We are looking for src zip file. And this is what we are looking for. Just select it and press open. OK? And here is your source code of arrays class. In JDK, in all classes you can find detailed Java documentation about each class, field, and method. That is the way how you can investigate what some specific methods do. Investigating of the source code in JDK is part of your self-education. You can find list of all fields, methods, nested and inner classes here in outline view. Also you can press Ctrl+O to see the list here in code editor. You can start typing method name and select it to navigate faster there. For example, sort of int array. And press enter. And here is Java documentation for this method. Feel free to learn documentation for other methods in the class. Let's recap together what you have learned today. We learned what arrays are and how to work with arrays. We learned default values for primitive types. In this lesson you saw how to instantiate multi-dimensional array. Now you know what import statement is used for and how to investigate source code of JDK. Also you know what Java util arrays class is and how you can use it to apply basic manipulations with arrays. And now let's review your homework. You can read about arrays in books to review the same topic from different point of view. I also recommend to take your time to investigate source code of arrays class. Today I will share with you information how my students can get unlimited access to Learn IT application, which will help you to be prepared for an interview. Also you can use this app to test yourself during the training course. In the app you can find different tasks grouped by topics with possibility to view correct answers with explanations afterwards. Right now this application only available for Android devices and we are working on releasing it in App Store to make it available for iPhones. Also inside the app you can complete certification and get certificate which will prove your knowledge. You can use the link to the certificate in your resume or in your LinkedIn profile like I do. For everyone, each certification costs coins which you can earn inside the application, but only for my students there is a bonus code which removes this restriction. And now I will show you how you can get unlimited number of attempts to complete certification inside the app. So first of all, you need to download and install the application on your mobile. After that, you need to register your account. You can use login with Facebook button to create account in one click. Here, in case you try to pass certification, you won't be able to do that because you don't have enough coins. Now go to My Account settings. In case you use login with Facebook, your nickname by default might look like this. In case you use registration form, you can choose nickname during the registration. But this nickname you can always change. So let's change it to Andrii Piatakha. Now you need to open special page on our website. You can find the link here, and also I will add it to description to this video. Guideline is simple. Paste your nickname here and now use a special authorization token that I shared only with my students. A capital, C lowercase, R capital, 18, K capital, L capital, Z. I will also leave this information in the lesson description. So once you see confirmation notification, go back to the application. Go again to your account settings, and now you'll see that you have promo code set up. And now you can pass certification without any limitations. Congratulations! Team, in case you like this app, please share it with your friends in the social networks. I would much appreciate this. Also, in case you have 2 more seconds, please rate this app in the Google Play Market. Your feedbacks will help other people to find this application. And if you have ideas or suggestions how we can improve this app, please do not hesitate to write directly to me in Instagram or Facebook or submit feedback form on our website. I did this application with all my heart for you and also come up with the best tests which I can think of and which some companies use nowadays in their interview process. Thanks in advance, team, for sharing information about this app in your social networks and for leaving feedback on the page of application in Google Play Market. Be sure your contribution really matters.
Today we will talk with you about operators in Java. What are operators? An operator is a symbol that performs a specific kind of operation on 1, 2, or 3 operands and produce a result. Operators in Java can be categorized based on 2 criteria. The first criteria, number of operands. There are 3 types of operators based on number of operands. An operator is called a unary, binary, or ternary operator based on number of operands. If an operator takes 1 operand, it's called a unary operator. If it takes 2 operands, it's called a binary operator. If it takes 3 operands, it's called a ternary operator. And the second criteria, type of operation they perform. An operator is called an arithmetic operator, a relational operator, a logical operator, or a bitwise operator, depending on the kind of operation it performs on its operands. Today we will talk about all operators which we have in Java. Let's start. I'd like to begin with unary arithmetic operators. They are: unary plus operator indicates positive value. By the way, numbers are positive by default. Unary minus operator negates an expression value. Increment operator increments a value by 1. Decrement operator decrements a value by 1. And here examples of these operators. We talked that numbers are positive by default, so in this case plus sign is redundant. But still, this is unary operator. Here is a minus sign. I believe this is clear, and it doesn't require us to dive into the details here. And here you can see increment and decrement operators. Each has 2 forms, prefix and postfix. What is the difference? Let's take a closer look at this example. With prefix form, the value of operand is incremented and only after that, value of the operand is used for the operations. In this example, for assignment operation. In this case, I variable will be incremented and after that assigned to I3 variable. In the next example, value of operand will be obtained first for use in operation. In this case, I4 variable will be initialized with 11 value, since we incremented I here, and only after that I variable will be incremented from 11 to 12. And here you can see similar example with decrement. In this line, value of the I variable is already 12, because of increment in previous line. Prefix form of decrement decrements value of the operand first, and only after that the value is assigned to I5 variable. That's why I5 variable not 12 but again 11.
In this line, 11 is assigned to i6, and only after that decrement operation is performed. That's why value of the I variable will be 10 here. I will share a link with you to this example, and you can run the program to find the console output with all the examples. You can play on your local environment with prefix and postfix form of increment and decrement to understand it better. Now let's discuss arithmetic binary operators. They are addition, adds values on either side of the operator, subtraction, subtracts right-hand operand from left-hand operand, division, divides left-hand operand by right-hand operand, modulus, divides left-hand operand by right-hand operand and returns remainder, and multiplication, multiplies values on either side of the operator. You can find examples of basic arithmetic operations right here, and console output of the results. Talking about modulus, let's consider the next example. If i9 variable is 5, then remainder of the division by 2 would be 1. Hope it's obvious that in case left-hand operand is less than right-hand operand, the result is always a value of the left-hand operand, like in this example. I believe these operators looks familiar to you from the times when you were in school. And again, here you can find all the examples. All operators mentioned above works with all primitive numeric types. What else you need to know about addition operator? That it is overloaded. Overloaded means that this operator is used to perform more than one function. This operator also concatenates strings. You can't subtract strings, but you can concatenate them like this. In the next lesson about expression type, I will share with you how concatenation of integer and string happened. Let's review assignment operators now. Everything is easy here. Right-hand operand is assigned to the left-hand operand. You can also see here different variations of assignment operators. They all behave similarly, so let's review one example here, assignment with addition. This operator adds right-hand operand to the left-hand operand and assigns the result to the left-hand operand. The same with other assignments operators. Relational operators. These operators compare values on either side of them and decide the relation among them. The result produced by a relational operator is always a Boolean value, true or false. In Java we have the following relational operators. Equals to checks if the values of two operands are equal or not. If yes, then condition becomes true. Not equals to check if the values of two operands are equal or not. If values are not equal, then condition becomes true. Greater than checks if the value of left operand is greater than the value of right operand. If yes, then condition becomes true. Less than check if the value of left operand is less than the value of right operand. If yes, then condition becomes true. Greater than or equals to checks if the value of left-hand operand is greater than or equal to the value of right operand. If yes, then condition becomes true. And less than or equals to checks if the value of left operand is less than or equal to the value of right operand. If yes, then condition becomes true. And here you can find examples with two integers, which are 10 and 20. No surprises here, everything is pretty straightforward. Logical operators. These operators work only with Boolean operands. Usually both operands are a result of some calculations. In real life, you can check the next scenario, for example. If variable of type user is not null and user ID is not empty, then perform some actions. We have such logical operators. Logical AND, short circuit AND, logical OR, short circuit OR, logical unary NOT, logical XOR, or exclusive OR. Let's start with logical AND. Logical AND returns true only when both operands are true. We have this example. Let me uncomment this line. Let's pretend here will be some condition which returns false. And here will be next calculations. I will divide 5 by 0 and will use relational operator to check whether result of this expression is equal to 0. What would I have during this program execution? we'll see runtime exception. To be specific, arithmetic exception, because I can't divide by 0. But I want you to focus on the next thing. If the first operand is false, we already know that result of this whole expression will be false, because as we discussed, AND operator returns true only if two operands are true. Why then Java needs to evaluate result of the second expression if result is clear from the first operand? I'm running the program. Here we have arithmetic exception. That's why it is good practice to use short-circuit AND. In case outcome of the expression may be determined only by the first operand, like in this example, when no matter what the second operand is, short-circuit AND returns result of the expression and JVM will not even bother to evaluate the right-hand operand. And here are the proofs. Let me comment this line. The similar example but with short-circuit AND will not throw the exception. This proves that JVM doesn't evaluate result of the right-hand operand and relies only on the left-hand operand to return the result. Let me run this program again, and you see we don't have any kind of exceptions. The similar situation with OR and short-circuit OR operators. OR returns true in case at least one of the operands is true. In case we can get the result of the expression only knowing the first operand, the short-circuit OR ignores the right-hand operand. And these examples will prove this statement. In the first one, we'll have arithmetic exception. Even despite the left-hand operand is true, the right-hand expression is also evaluated and arithmetic exception is thrown. In the second example, we will receive true because the first operand is true and right-hand expression is not evaluated. Logical OR operator returns true if at least one operand is true. That's why JVM doesn't care about right-hand operand if the first one is true. You can see how logical unary NOT works in this example. It just turns true to false and false to true. When to use this? The easiest example. String objects have method isEmpty, which return true if strings are empty. But in your program you want to perform some actions with the string only if string is not empty. Taking into account these API limitations, you use logical unary NOT to implement your logic. It will sound like this. In case this string is not empty, then do the following. That's where you need unary NOT operator. Exclusive OR behaves like logical OR with one exception. It returns false if both operands are true. Now let's take a look at bitwise operators. Hope you watched previous lesson about number systems, because to understand how bitwise operators work, you need to have clear understanding of how integers are represented in binary format. In Java we have the following binary operators. Binary AND operator copies a bit to the result if it exists in both operands. Binary OR operator copies a bit if it exists in either operand. Binary XOR operator copies the bit if it's set in one operand but not both. Binary ones complement operator is unary and has the effect of flipping bits. Binary right shift operator, the left operand's value is moved right by the number of bits specified by the right operand. Shift right 0 fill operator. The left operand's value is moved right by the number of bits specified by the right operand, and shifted values are filled up with zeros. I will show you an example why these two consider it to be different. Binary left shift operator. The left operand's value is moved left by the number of bits specified by the right operand. Let's take a look at examples here. To visualize how binary AND operator works, I put in comments here binary representation of 4 and 5. This is 4 in binary format and this is 5. AND is applied to each pair of bits in the number. Let's treat to 1 as true and to 0 as false. True and true will be true. False and false will be false. False and true is false. And this number in decimal format is 4. That's why 4 and 5 equals to 4. Does it make sense now? The similar example with binary OR operator. True or true will be true. False or false will be false. False or true will be true. This number in decimal format will be equal to 5. Feel free to investigate this XOR example by yourself. Bitwise complement operator just flips the bits. What was 1 becomes 0 and vice versa. Let's flip the bits in this number. Bitwise operators work with 32 bits integers, but for the sake of example I put in comments here only last 8 bits. Here is last 8 bits of 1. And after we flipped bits we have -2. Why? Because in Java integers are signed, and the first bit of the integer, the sign bit, determines whether the number is positive or negative. If the first bit is 0, then the number is positive. If the first bit is 1, then the number is negative. Here is the binary representation of -2. To make you understand better how negative integers are stored in Java, please consider this example. Here is binary representation of -128. Why? Because 1 multiplied by 2 in the power of 7, because rank of this bit is 7, that will be 128. Taking into account that the first bit is signed bit, this is -128. And here is binary representation of -64. Why? Because -128 plus 1 multiplied by 2 in power of 6 will be -64. You remember how we did calculations in our number systems lesson? We add values of the next bits to each other. Hope this makes more sense now. Let's take a look how bitwise right shift works. And again, to understand how right shift works, let's convert this decimal number to its binary format. 5 in binary format looks like this. And now let's shift all bits to the right. What we will get? We will get 2. Because 2 in binary format looks like this. But what is the difference between right shift and unsigned right shift? If we take a look at the same example, we won't see difference. The 5 becomes 2 after shifting by 1 bit to the right. But if we take a look at example with negative number, we will see how right shift and unsigned right shift operators are different. We have -128 here. Unsigned right shift for 1 bit gives us this number. And just right shift gives us this number. When we use right shift operator, it keeps signed bit intact. If original number is negative, then it will remain negative, even after right shift, because first or most significant bit never lost. Doesn't matter how many times you shift. On the other hand, unsigned right shift operator doesn't preserve sign of original number and fills the new place with 0. That's why it's known as unsigned right shift operator or simply right shift with 0 fill. Can you see this in binary format? In the first example, we filled new place with 0. In the second example, we leave the first bit unchanged and made shift here. Left shift, the similar example. Bits are moved to the left, and new positions are filled with zeros. 5 in binary format and 10 in binary format looks like this. So after the left shift by 1 bit, we are getting this number, where you will use bit shifts. Operation with bits considered to be faster than regular arithmetic operations. In JDK sometimes in the source code you will find that bit shifts are used. Probably you won't use bit shifts in day-to-day activities, but definitely you will see those in the source code. And now you understand how these operators work. It is very convenient to use shift operators for division and multiplication by 2. Shifting bits to the left by 1 bit is equivalent to multiplication by 2. Shifting bits to the right by 1 bit is equivalent to division by 2. You can also use these formulas for faster calculations of bit shifts. In some x number, shifting bits to the left by y bits will be equal to x multiplied by 2 in power of y. The similar example. In some x number, shifting bits to the right by y bits will be equal to x divided by 2 in power of y. I believe right now you know about bit shifts even more than some senior developers. And last but not the least operator for today is ternary operator. This operator works with 3 operands. This is conditional operator which can help us to write ifs and else statements. Let's have a closer look to how it works. The first expression usually called condition and should return true or false. In case condition is true, then true expression is evaluated. In case condition is false, then false expression is evaluated. In this example, in case 2 is more than 1 and result of this expression is true, then first expression is evaluated and this string is returned. In case we have expression where 2 is less than 1 and result of this expression is false, then the second expression is evaluated and this string is returned. Is it clear? And now let's discuss operator precedence from highest to lowest. I know that some companies also have test questions to test precedence of operators. That's why I encourage you to learn these operators. But in real life, nobody would write the code with multiple arithmetic operators, bitwise operators, along with ternary operators in one line. Usually you would use parentheses to make it clear in which sequence operators should work. So I would leave the learning of operator precedence up to you, because in my opinion it doesn't require to go over each of these right now in video lesson. You just need to learn the table which I will share with you in the homework. And now let's review your homework. Remember that optionally I always recommend you to read books, the same things what we discussed just from different point of view, chapters about operators, and also learn operator precedence described in this table. Dear students, in this lesson I'd like to draw attention to some operations with integers and floating point numbers. Let's start review this example. Imagine you want to divide two integers. Let's imagine you are implementing Uber application and you want to split ride charge between you and your friends. If ride charge was $20 and there were 3 of you, each of you should pay for $6. According to the results of our program. Probably each of you will be happy because you all together saved $2. But Uber driver will hate your app. You need to remember that when you are dividing integers, you receive integer. And there is no rounding. Fractional part of the result is just not taken into account. What you can do about it now? Just change type of the operand to double to get floating point number as a result. You see, I am casting integer to double here and running the program. We'll learn with you more about expression type in the separate lesson. Now you see double result, but still, this is something what end user wouldn't expect and can't pay exactly this amount of money. So what to do in this case? The rule of thumb here is to use big decimal object. In previous lessons we learned how to attach source code to Eclipse and how to investigate the source code. So feel free to open Java doc for big decimal type to learn more. The big decimal class provides operations for arithmetic, scale manipulation, rounding. Also this class gives its user complete control over rounding behavior. If no rounding mode is specified and the exact result cannot be represented, an exception is thrown. Let's declare a variable of big decimal type here. To create object of big decimal, use special method value of like this. I am calling value of method here of big decimal type. This method represents creational architecture pattern which is called factory method. We'll discuss patterns in the separate lesson. For now, just remember how to create object of big decimal type. You can also set scale for this number. We are having deal with money here, so let me set scale of 2. This is our ride fee. Let's create a new variable which will contain amount of people we have. 3 people. And now let's divide ride fee by amount of people. Without rounding mode specified, we'll have arithmetic exception like this. Our program wants to tell us that we can't show the exact calculation result. Let's set up rounding mode. Put comma here, rounding mode, dot. You can choose out of different rounding modes here, but let's select the one we learned at school. And now let's print result to console and run the program. And now we see the result which we were expected to see. Let's also review operations with double. Imagine you have some double number, 3.1, and you need to subtract from it 1.21. When you subtract double value from double value, you will see result like this. The funny story is that I ordered pizza online recently and applied my bonuses. As a result, I got number like this. I asked them how they would like me to pay this amount of money. We laughed a bit, but still, as a programmer, you need to know what to do in such cases. There are infinite number of real numbers in any range, but only finite number of bits to represent them. For this reason, rounding errors is expected for doubles and floats. The number you get is the closest number possible that can be represented by double in floating point representation. Here is where big decimal with rounding mode will help us. Let's create two objects of big decimal here. Do not forget to set the scale for them. And let's subtract this number from this one. I am running the program, and here is the result. Today you learned how to control precision in arithmetic operations and how to set up rounding rules. Today we'll review special class which will help us to perform mathematical operations. The Java lang maths contains a set of basic math operations, such as obtaining the absolute value, highest and lowest of two values, rounding of values, random values, etc. In this lesson we will not review each specific method in details, because of two reasons. The first reason is that in real life you won't use them all. For example, you will not use calculation of tangent on daily basis while creating web applications. I hope so. And a lot of others trigonometric functions. And the second reason, most of the methods are self-describing and it's clear what they perform from their names. Instead, I would suggest us to focus on how to call these methods and what are the most common methods which we'll use from the math class. Let's open math type source code. In Eclipse you can easily open any type by using the following hotkeys. Hold Ctrl plus Shift plus T. We already have math class here because I searched for it recently, but just remember that you can type name of any class here and find it in the list below. Let's press Ctrl and O to have overview of what we have in this class. First of all, we have two constants here. E, the double value which is closer than any other to the base of natural logarithms. Pi, the pi number, the ratio of the circumference of a circle to its diameter. Here are trigonometric methods. Here is the method for getting square root of a number. Here is the method to raise the number to the power of another argument. Here is the method to round number. Here is the method to generate random number from 0 to 1. Here are overloaded methods to get an absolute number of a value. And here methods to find maximum and minimum value out of two arguments. And now let's take a look how you can use these methods. To call specific methods in the class maths, or to refer to the constant in the class, use dot. Like this you can refer to the pi constant. And here is how you can call any specific method and see the result in console output. You can also assign the value which is returned from a method to the variable if you wish. By the way, you can extract variable very easy like this. Select the expression, press Alt plus Shift plus L simultaneously, type the variable name, and press Enter. And you can see how we substituted the expression here with variable. You also need to know that some operations with floating point numbers can produce not a number result. Getting square root from negative number will return not a number result. This value usually indicates the result of invalid operations. For example, getting square root from a negative number or dividing 0 by another 0 of double type. All operations with not a number will produce not a number result. By the way, you're already aware that division by 0 throws arithmetic exception. But in case we divide any number by floating point 0, we will get infinity. we can get positive and negative infinity like showed in these examples. And here's how you can round numbers. To take control over the scale of the result, feel free to multiply the first operand, round value, and after that divide the result on the same number you multiplied at the beginning. For example, to have scale of 2 for the result, feel free to multiply on 100 and divide the result by 100. And now let's take a look how to generate random number. Mass random generates values only between 0 and 1. To get random integer number, you should cast the result to int. To not always have 0 after casting to int, we need to multiply random number by the amount of numbers we would like to have in our range for random number generation. This example will generate for us random number in the range from 0 to 100. And if you want to make the first number of the range different, just add any integer number. For example, here we will generate random numbers in the range from 100 to 200. In the next lessons we will learn with you one more option to generate random number, with random class. Taking into account this lesson about mass class, we'll review only this option to generate random number in scope of the lesson. By the way, in case you want to learn how specific method works, you can hold Ctrl and press mouse left click to get navigated to the method source code and investigate how it works, and to learn the Java documentation for this method. Please feel free to investigate the source code of the mass class and learn what are other methods there. After today's lesson you know why you need mass class and how you can use it. The purpose of today's lesson to learn what is the type of arithmetic expression. It is a very important topic to understand. I suggest to jump directly to examples. But first of all, let's agree on the names. In Java we have expressions and statements. What is the difference? An expression is a construct made up of variables, operators, and method invocations. On the other hand, statements are roughly equivalent to sentences in natural languages. A statement forms a complete unit of execution. Let's take a look here. B plus B, this is the expression. And all this line is a statement, including assignment operation. So today we'll learn what is the type of an arithmetic expression. We have byte, short, int, long, float, double, and char variables here. You need to remember, if you want to add 2 bytes, the expression type won't be byte. By default, the integer result of the expression is always int. So in case you would like to assign the result of this expression to byte variable, you'll see compilation error, because this is against the rules. Type mismatch. Cannot convert from int to byte. No matter if you're adding shorts or byte and int and char, the result of operations with integers always will be int. But in case you will use long variable in operation with integers, the result will be long. And you see that in case I would try to assign the result of the addition of int and long to int variable, I will see the same compilation error. Type mismatch. In case float becomes part of the arithmetic operation, the result of the expression also becomes float. And if we perform operations with double, the type of the result obviously is double. So now I believe you understand why in this case we'll see 3 and in this case the result will be floating point number. One more thing you need to know about expression types. In case one of the operands is string, the result always will be string. There is no such thing as plus operator on the bytecode level. So the compiler has to pick an operation. The plus operator, which is applied to non-constant strings, was compiled to a string buffer usage before Java 5 and to string builder usage in Java 5 to Java 8. In Java 9 for string, concatenation is going to change from a string builder to a strategy chosen by the GRE via invoke dynamic. There are 6 strategies that are possible for string concatenation starting from JDK 9. And we won't get deeper here in details to not get lost. This is not very critical information for junior software engineers to know. So far you can imagine that this expression is interpreted as string builder object, which behaves like during append method call. We'll have separate lesson dedicated to string builder and string buffer objects. Let's open string builder type for a few seconds just to take a look at append method. We have overloaded methods for append. In case when we concatenate int,
this method will be called. You can investigate the source code if you wish. In case when we concatenate null, this method will be called. Where in turn string value of method will be called. And here you can find ternary operator, and in case this argument is null, the method will return the null string. We'll have separate lesson dedicated to string builder and string buffer types later in our course. So don't worry in case you didn't catch something related to string builder type. We'll discuss it more in details later. Right now you can imagine string builder as a special type which can create one single string object out of many string objects by concatenating strings. Just to have understanding how plus operator performs string concatenation under the hood. In today's lesson we will learn how we can compare primitive and reference types, and we will review Java memory model. Also I will show you what is integer pool in Java and what does equals method do. Let's start from example how we are comparing primitive types. You already learned the operators in Java and know that to compare primitive types we can use equals to operator. It works with all primitive types. For example, here we have two int variables, and here we compare them. In this line we'll receive true. In this line we'll receive false. And here we'll also receive true because a character is on 65th position in the Unicode table. Everything is clear here. Let's continue. From the lesson about primitive types, you should remember that each primitive type has its wrapper type. The wrapper types are reference types of data in Java. Let me declare two variables of integer type here and initialize both of them with the same value. Now let's compare them with equals to operator. The result will be false. Why? I variable and I2 have the same value. To understand the answer, let me visualize it to you. Int is primitive type. Variable of type int contains the value in itself. So when we are comparing two ints, there is no concerns from Java during the runtime to compare two values. On the other hand, variables of integer type are referencing to the objects. So when you are comparing two variables of reference type with equals to operator, you are comparing just references, but not values. And the references are different. Two references are pointing out to different objects in the memory. To understand it better, let's take a look on the Java memory model. I was thinking whether a separate lesson for Java memory model is required and come up with the decision to review it with specific examples like this one. Because one of the goals of this course to not make things even more complex, but find the way how to simplify your learning process. So here on the screen you see very high-level visualization of Java memory model. JVM divides memory into stack and heap memory. What is the difference? Let me start from stack. Stack memory contains primitive values that are specific to a method, so-called local variables, and references to the objects that are in heap. Access to that memory is last in, first out order. Whenever a new method is called, for example main method is called like showed here, a new block on top of the stack is created which contains values specific to that method, like primitive variables and references to objects. When the method finishes execution, its corresponding stack frame is flushed. The flow goes back to the calling method, and space becomes available for the next method. Stack memory size is very less compared to heap memory. So here you can see we are storing primitive types and references to the objects. Java uses heap space for dynamic method allocation for Java objects and JRE classes at the runtime. Every time we are creating new objects, it's created in heap space. But reference to this object is stored in stack memory. We can always manipulate the size of heap memory as per our requirement. You can start JVM with parameters to indicate heap size if you wish. How to do that? We can discuss it separately, just to not lose focus from current subject. So I believe now it's clear why we have false here when comparing two integer objects, because these variables are referencing to the different objects. Let's take a look at the next example now. I have two integer variables which I initialized with 127 value. Let's compare them again with equals to operator, and the result is true.
Based on what I have just described, the only thing which might pop up in your mind is that i3 variable and i4 variable are referencing to the same object in heap. But how this can be? It can be this way for integers because in heap, integer pool exists. What is integer pool? From Java language specification in chapter 5, you can see that if value is boxed in the range from -128 to 127, then the result of two boxing conversions will be the same. To optimize memory, two integer objects won't be created. Instead, our variable will refer to integer pool where values from -128 to 127 are stored. So two variables will refer to the same object in heap memory. Let me visualize this for better understanding. Two references in stack memory are referring to the same value. And that's why, when we are comparing these values via equals to operator, we receive true. Hope that explains a lot. Let's continue. This party is not over yet. Now, let me create two new objects of integer type. Because previously we just boxed int to integer, but let me specify that I want to create new objects. New keyword tells Java to allocate memory for the new object in heap. Your first question might be, why is this crossed out? The answer is because this is deprecated constructor starting from Java version 9. This means from Java version 9 it is not recommended way to create integer objects with this constructor. Usually in Java doc it's specified why something considered to be deprecated and what to use instead. So let's open the source code, and what do we see here? Because it's really appropriate to use this constructor. The static factory is generally a better choice as it's likely to yield significantly better space and time performance. But let's not focus on the deprecated constructor. We have another goal here. The point is to explain you where objects are stored on the simple examples. So let's explicitly call this constructor to create new object in heap. Even despite the fact that the value of integer is 127, the result of comparing will be false. Because after these lines are executed, we have two different objects in the heap, and these two variables reference to two different objects. And here you can see recommended way to initialize integer variables. And as it was said in Java doc, this way of getting reference to the integer object can ensure better space usage. That's why i7 and i8 are referencing to the same object, and the result of this comparison is true. But if we can't compare properly two different objects with equals to operator, how we can compare them? All reference types have equals method, which allows us to compare not references, but values of objects. Integers also have equals method. Let's take a look how it works. You should write variable name, call equals, and after that pass the value which you want to compare. And in this case, we will see true. Now let's create two array objects. As you remember, arrays are also reference types. So when I compare them with equals to operator, the result is false. That is obvious, and you already understand why. Because we are comparing references here, but not actually the value of objects. Now you know that each reference type has equals method. Let's try it, but unfortunately the result is again false. Why? Because to make equals work properly, each Java type needs to implement it that way it would compare state of the objects. There is a default implementation of equals method, which compares references. Let's take a look at the source code. Do you see this? It's the same as just comparing references. And this is default implementation of equals method in object class. When we'll learn object-oriented programming, I will explain you more about object class. For integer type, equals method works differently because it has different implementation. We are casting object to integer, retrieving an int value, and comparing it with another int value. So we are comparing two ints here. And this value variable is field of integer object. So how you can compare arrays then? You remember that we have arrays class, just use arrays equals to compare arrays. And you will get true in this case. And now let this variable point out to the same object as this variable.
After this line, two variables are pointing out to the same object in heap. That's why comparison here will return true as a result. Let's recap what we have learned today. Today we learned how to compare reference types, how Java memory model looks like, what is integer pool, and how we can use equals method. Today I will show you how your Java program can read information from console. In next home tasks you will need to create console applications. And I want you to write programs that can interact with end users. The easiest way to build this interaction is user input to the program through the console. A bit later in the course we'll have input-output streams topic where we'll review in details different ways how your program can process input and output streams. So far, I want to show you a common approach for educational purposes how to read information from console. Feel free to create scanner object like this and pass system in to it like this. Do not forget to do import for scanner class from Java util package. IDE should recommend you to import this one. What is system in? Java application has input and output streams. By default, these streams are connected with console. For default output stream, we are calling print method on system out, which prints data to console. System in allows us to read values from console. So how to read from console? You can call methods on the scanner object. For example, if you want to read string, you need to call next method. If you want to read int, call next int method, and so on. Let's run this program. Input streams block the thread execution. So when you call method next, the program execution is paused because it's waiting for user input. After that, program will proceed execution. Let's put any word here and press enter. And again, program execution will be paused in this line. After my input, I press enter and program successfully finished. Now you know how to read information from console. Feel free to investigate other methods in scanner type. This information should help you during implementation of your console applications. In this video we'll take a look at your homework and we'll review solution of your coding exercises. Let's take a look at your homework first. As usual, I recommend you read books to have different point of view on the same topics. Also, before homework implementation, please review the source code of JavaLang Maths class. And here was our first coding exercise. To write a program which will add two integers which were passed as program arguments. The second coding exercise is about finding area of triangle. And the third coding exercise is about calculating circle circumference. Let's review the solution for each of these tasks. Task number 1. You can run your program with input arguments. Here is the solution. The args variable is array of strings, array of program arguments. Why do we need to specify arguments for program? For example, you implemented Messenger app, and your application could work in server mode and in client mode. To switch mode, you need to start your program with different arguments. This is just one of the examples from the top of my head. Another example. Java Virtual Machine is also a program which can be started with different arguments. For example, you need to set up initial heap size for your JVM. You can use special arguments to do this. Do you remember how we run our HelloWorld application in console? To make you understand how you can run your application with arguments, let me run this solution from console. And you will understand where potentially we can pass arguments. You don't need to open console separately if you have Eclipse open. First of all, we need to find file with class extension for this solution. We remember that when we created project, by default bin folder is used to store class files. Let me remind you where this was specified. New project, Java project, random name here, click next, and here is where default output folder is specified. You can change it if you wish, but there is not so much sense in doing this. Okay, so here is our project. But where is bin folder? You can't see it here, because we are in the Package Explorer. Package Explorer shows project in a structured and more logical way. For example, we can see packages here instead of multiple nested folders. We can execute Java files as Java programs here, and so on. Taking into account as a software engineer you are interested in the source code and not interested in class files.
You even can't see bin folder here. So what to do now? Let's open Navigator view. To open Navigator, press Window, Show View, Navigator here. And here it is. Navigator view shows the raw structure of your project. When you need it. When you want to see these files the exact way they are located in your file system. And here we can find our bin folder and class files in it. And now when we found bin folder, let's open console here. To do this, select the folder and find this icon. Open a terminal. You don't have git bash installed on your computer so far, so most likely the only option you would have here is local terminal. Let's open it. And here it is. Do you see this path? We are in bin folder. Now, we need to run our program with arguments. Do you see this package declaration here? That's why to run this program we need to write full class name, including package. Let's do it. Java, com, itbools, learnit, dot, java core, dot, operations, dot, homework, dot, add integers. And let's press enter now. Do you see the error we have? Array index out of bound exception. That is because we are trying to get element with 0 index from this array, when this array doesn't have any items in it. So that's why JVM tells us I can't get item with 0 index because there is no items at all in this array. So let's now pass to our program next arguments. I press up arrow key and pass into arguments 1 space 3 and press enter. And you can see the result here now. So 1 and 3 in this case are program arguments. Everything what will be specified after your program name, separated by spaces, is program arguments. And everything what you will put after Java is JVM arguments. For example, let me press up arrow, press home button to move cursor at the beginning. This time I will add JVM arguments. Let me add argument to set maximum heap size 1 GB. Dash xmx1g. And press enter to run the program. So this is called JVM arguments. And this is called program arguments. I believe now it is clear what is program and JVM arguments. How to run your program with arguments from Eclipse? Do mouse right click in the code editor, run as, run configurations. Make sure you are selected correct program here on the left. My program's name add integers. And here in arguments tab you can specify program and JVM arguments. I already have 1 and -2 here, and you can press run button. And here is the result of our program. In the program you are parsing integer from the first argument. It will have 0 index in strings array, and you parse the second argument. After you have 2 integers, you can add them and print result to console. Definitely, this is not perfect solution. Why? For example, we don't expect situation when our program will be started without arguments, and you already saw exception which might happen. Or when arguments will be floating point numbers. Or when arguments won't be integers but will be special characters, for example. But to implement all these scenarios we need to learn other topics such as control statements and exception handling. So this solution should be more than enough right now. We'll make our tasks more complicated as we go. Now let's take a look at solution for the second task. Let me navigate back to the Package Explorer and open area of triangle source code. It is pretty straightforward. You already saw in previous lessons how to read information from console, so you need to ask user to enter values for triangle sides first, and after that to use Heron's formula to calculate area of triangle. Here I am using mass class to implement Heron's formula in Java source code. Let's run this application and we'll take a look how it works. I am pressing Ctrl plus F11. And I am asked to provide length of a side of a triangle. Let it be 3. I press enter. The value is assigned to a side variable. And I am asked to enter b side of a triangle. I am entering 3 one more time, pressing enter. This value is assigned to B site variable. And I am asked to enter C site variable. Let it be 3 one more time, and I am pressing enter. C site value was assigned to this variable, and after that calculations have been performed. And we print the result to console here. In case a triangle with such sides doesn't exist, we need to print not a number according to our requirements. Let's check this scenario. I am running the program from the beginning. Let A side be 5, B side 1, and C side 1. That is obvious that such triangle doesn't exist. And I see not a number result. Let's review solution of the third task. You need to ask user to input circle radius to calculate circumference. After that you need to read input value from console. Let's read double. And according to formula which you can find in the internet, let's calculate circle circumference and print result to console. Let me zoom it out a bit. Let's run this program. I am asked to enter circle radius. Let it be 5. And here is the circle circumference. Geometry is not a part of this course, so what I expect from you after this task completion is that you know how to read values from console and you are aware about constants that exist in math class. That's all. I will share with you links to the source code and attachments to this lesson. Feel free to ask questions in comments to this lesson in case if you have any, and I will be glad to answer them.
Today we'll talk with you about if-else statement. In Java you have if selection statement, which allows you to control the flow of your program's execution based upon conditions known only during runtime. Let's take a closer look how you can take control of your program's execution. Imagine we have two variables. In the first one you are storing amount of coins which user has, and in the second variable you are storing item price user wants to purchase in your application. We want program behaves differently when user can and cannot purchase specified item. Here you can see if keyword and condition in parentheses. So you need to remember that expression in parentheses should always return either true or false. In this particular case we want to know if amount of money on an account is less than item price or no. In case this condition is true, namely amount of money on the account is less than item price, let's notify user that he or she doesn't have enough money on the account to purchase the item. Otherwise, let's proceed with purchase logic implementation. And you see that I used another keyword, else keyword. Else block will be executed in case condition specified next to if statement will be false. From the syntax standpoint, I want to highlight that you not always should put braces for if and else blocks. For example, if you have only one line in if or else statement, you can just skip braces. Compiler is smart enough to understand that this line is associated with if block and this line is associated with else block. Even despite the fact it is possible to write in this way, I don't recommend you to do so. Why? Because when you are putting braces, I would say it is more readable when each block is started and finished. Because for example, let me add line here. At the first glance it looks like this line is part of the else block. But it isn't. To avoid cases like this and potentially other errors, just always use braces for if-else blocks. You can use nested if-else statements if you wish. Just always remember that else keyword will be always associated with the closest if. In this example, this else is associated with this if, but not with this one. You can build if-else-if ladder. You need this ladder in cases when you need to verify condition in specific order, one after another. Let's imagine you have order price and you need to identify which discount you want to apply to this order. In case when order price is more than 0 but less than 100, you apply 5% discount. In case when order price more or equal to 100 but less than 500, you apply 10% discount. And in case when order price is more or equal to 500 but less than 5000, you apply 15% discount. In this example, we build sequence of checks to show users the most appropriate message. Let's take a look at your homework. Recommend you read book, chapter about if statement, and here are two simple coding exercises for you to practice your skills in using if statement.
Let's review solution for coding exercises. In the first coding exercise, you needed to start program in admin or guest mode and print different text to console. One of the possible solutions is to join all arguments in single string separated by commas first. To do this, I used join method from string class. I pass separator an array of arguments to this method. And after that we can create if statement and check whether string with arguments contains flags for admin mode and guest mode. If string contains these two flags simultaneously, and I use AND operator to check this, according to our requirements, we need to notify users that we need to select mode for our program. In case string with arguments doesn't have two flags simultaneously, then we check if string with arguments contains admin flag, and if not, we check if argument string contains guest flag. As you learn loops and switch statements, you will be able to implement this solution in a bit different way to cover also some other use cases. But so far, to practice skills in writing if statement, this solution is good enough. In the second coding exercise, you needed to add number and show result in different formats, floating point number or integer. You did similar task in the past. What was changed this time? Let's create if statement at the beginning of our program to check if input arguments contains point separator, which we usually have in floating point numbers. And you can see OR operator here. So in case first or second argument contains point, let's try to parse double value from these arguments and print result of addition to console. In case both arguments are integers, let's parse integer and print result to console. Hope you understood the solution. Today we'll learn another selection statement. I'm talking about switch statement. I will show you how you can use it and what are pros and cons of using it. The switch statement is an easy way to split the logic of your program's execution based on the specific expression. Let's take a look at the next example to understand the topic better. Let's imagine you are writing code to implement logic for online store on the backend. As you learn more, we'll develop our own web application. Right now, imagine that before applying final price for checkout for your customer, you want to apply personalized discount for this user. To do this, you need to execute different code based on the customer status. Customer status may be guest, regular customer, and premium customer, okay? Definitely it can be different variations in business logic and naming and so on, but for the sake of example, let it be this way. Here, next to switch keyword, you can specify expression. We passed link to string object which contains customer status. There is specific requirement for expression type. The expression type should be either byte or short or char or int or string or enum type. What is enum type, I will explain you in the separate lesson. Here you have different cases. Case when expression will be guest, case when expression will be regular customer or premium customer. The value of the expression is compared with each value in case statement. If match is found, the code following that case statement is executed. Default statement is optional, but in case no match was found, default block is executed. The break statement is used to terminate a statement sequence, so it is similar to exit from switch block behavior. In this case, our customer status is premium customer, that's why this block is executed. Now let's take a look at the next example. In this example, I variable equals to 1, and case 1 doesn't have break statement. That means that match will be found here and code will be executed starting from here until break statement is executed. And here in the next example, you can see how default statement works. I is equal to 10 right now, and there is no case for 10. That's why default block is executed. And now when you know what switch statement is, let's compare it with if statement and we'll try to identify pros and cons. I believe you remember all examples and you notice that switch can test only for equality, whereas if statement can test expressions based on ranges of values. You cannot specify range in case statements inside switch block. But on the other hand, switch statement demonstrates better performance when it comes to multiple paths of execution. That is because compiler creates so-called jump table for switch statement. When during runtime expression is verified, execution goes directly to the specific case. In case with if-else-if loader, JVM verifies each condition. And in case there are a lot of such conditions, obviously it takes more time than with switch statement. And the last one, but not the least, some developers consider syntax of switch statement more readable than if statement. Probably that is because clear case blocks, which visually separates code blocks better from each other. Also probably that is because sometimes conditions in if statements might be complicated in comparison with switch block when you don't have long conditions, just constants next to case keyword. That's all what you need to know about switch statement. Let's take a look at your homework. Recommend you to read book, chapter about switch statement, and one coding exercise to practice your skills with writing switch statement. Let's review together homework for switch statement. You had to implement program which will behave differently based on user input. User can choose different actions and you should print different text to console. First of all, we ask user what action he or she would like to perform. We use scanner object for that. Afterwards, we use user input in switch statement as an expression. And we have different cases here to address different user input. In case user enters any random value, default statement will print to console this text and will ask user to enter one of the listed values. We start section about iteration statements in Java. These statements create what we commonly call loops. We'll discuss all loops which exist in Java, and I will show you how you can use them. I will put stress on best practices and when to use which loop. But before we jump to the practical examples, let's discuss when do we need loops. A lot of times in your program you need to perform repeatable actions. For example, you have multiple items in the cart in the online store, and you need to calculate total price of the cart. You can iterate over each item in the cart and get its price to get total price. Or you did a request to the database to fetch data about sellers, and you received multiple rows from database. You need to iterate over each row to create object of seller type, for example. Or you have an array of users, and you need to leave only users which have more than 1000 bonus credits on their accounts and send them a promotional offer. To do this, you need to fetch all users from database, iterate over each one, understand how many bonus credits has each user, and leave only those who have 1000 and more. There are 4 types of loops available for us in Java. In this lesson we'll discuss while loop. While loop repeats statement or code block while controlling expression is true. When expression specified here becomes false, then program proceed execution from the next line following after while loop. The curly braces is not needed in case you want to repeat single statement. In case you want to repeat code block, use curly braces. You need to know that the body of the loop won't be executed even once if the condition is false to begin with. If you want to create infinite loop, just place true boolean literal in controlling expression like this. In this lesson we'll review with you do while loop. There might be cases when you need to repeat some actions multiple times, but you are sure that you need to repeat code block at least once. I believe you remember that in while loop code block will not be executed never if controlling expression is false. In do while loop you can guarantee that body of the loop will be executed at least once. You need to write do keyword, after that body of the loop is described. And after that you have while statement with condition inside. To be honest, it's hard to think of real life scenario when we need do while loop and when we use it over while loop. But the one scenario which pops up in my mind is entering PIN code in the ATM. Before dispensing some cash, ATM requested PIN code from you. The operation of reading PIN code should be performed at least once. In case PIN code is not valid, we repeat this action one more time and requesting PIN code again. In case PIN code is correct, you need to change condition to break loop. In this example you can see that I have counter which is initialized with 0 by default. While counter is less than 5, we'll keep iterating. And in this example you can see that even when counter is already 5, the body of the loop is executed. After that controlling expression is verified and program is finished. And you see this text in console output. In this lesson we'll learn for loop with condition. Let's understand how for loop operates on this example. we need to write for keyword first. After that we put parentheses, and inside we have initialization expression, condition, and iteration. Initialization expression is executed only once. The goal is to initialize counter here, which allows us to track amount of iterations. By the way, what is iteration? An iteration is a repetition of loop body. Usually iteration body is surrounded with braces. So one execution of this block is one iteration. After initialization part, we write condition. This is condition which is verified on each iteration of the loop. If condition is true, loop body is executed. If condition is false, loop body is not executed and program proceeds execution from the next line after the loop. In this case, we limit amount of iterations by 5. The next part of the for loop is iteration. This part will be executed after each loop iteration. Usually counter increment or decrement is specified here. So let's recap. Initially I variable is equals to 0, I will be incremented on each iteration, and when I will be equal to 5, we will not execute loop body. I will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, that is 5 iterations in total. And we will print text to console 5 times. I would like to add few more things here. First of all, from the syntax standpoint, it is not necessary to use braces if you have only one line in for loop. So if I will remove braces here, everything will work as expected. But personally, I would recommend you keep braces for better readability. Another thing to add here is that you can initialize counter outside of the loop if you wish. Or you can make increment inside the iteration body if you wish. And even loop like this is possible. So this is example of infinite loop, which will never end. Do you see that there is no condition here? There might be cases when you need to use more than one statement in initialization or in iteration part. You can use comma. For example, as you can see here, I am using comma to declare 2 counters. And one counter will be incremented after each iteration, and another one will be decremented. And here how it works. That is all what I wanted to share with you regarding for with condition loop. In this lesson we'll review with you for each loop. It's another variation of for loop. This type of loop was created to cycle over collection of elements such as arrays from start to finish. You can't change direction of iteration in for each loop. For each loop is often called as enhanced for loop. To make you understand it better, let me start from the example. We have an array of ints, and we want to print sum of all ints from array. Let's iterate over this array. To not declare a counter and condition, I can just use for each loop. We have for keyword here. After that, we have iteration variable and collection of elements. There are various types of collections can be used in for each loop, such as those which are present in Java collections framework. We'll discuss them later in this course. But in this lesson we'll use array, since you're already familiar with arrays. Iteration variable will receive elements from collection one at a time. On each iteration of the loop, element from the array will be assigned to this variable. And inside the loop body, you can use this variable to implement your business logic. In program output you can see that we print to console sum of all numbers from the array. This loop is finished when the last element is retrieved from the collection. But you can stop the loop early if you wish. We are going to have separate lesson where I will show you how we can break any loop. One more trick. To write for each loop faster in Eclipse, just type Foreach, press Ctrl plus space, and press Enter. In this short lesson we'll discuss when you need to use nested loops and how to do this. You can insert loop inside another one, like in this example. Here I have my main loop, and here is nested one. When do you need this? For example, when you iterate over multi-dimensional array. From the syntax standpoint, to have nested loop, you just need to put one loop inside another one. You should have code block for this and use braces. In the output you see that the first iteration of main loop is started, I equals to 0, and after that 3 iterations of nested loop are performed. Here you can see 0, 1 and 2. After that the second iteration of main loop is started. And again, 3 iterations of nested loop are performed, and so on. I will share with you coding exercise to practice writing of nested loops. In this lesson we'll answer the question what are jump statements in loops and how to use them. Java supports different jump statements which can transfer control to another part of your program. In this lesson we'll discuss break and continue statement. Sometimes you want to finish the current loop iteration faster. For example, in specific cases you don't want to execute the whole code block, but you don't want to stop iterations. What to do in this case? Just use continue statement. Continue statement moves control to the conditional expression which controls the loop. For example, you want to print only odd numbers to console. Let's check whether number is odd or no. If remainder of division by 2 is equal to 0, that means that number is even. Then let's start new iteration of the loop. And right now I equals to 1. We have odd number now. That means this statement will be executed, because we will not call continue this time. That's how continue statement works. Break statement. You can break any loop you would like. There is no need to keep iterating if there is no sense in it anymore. Let's break this loop when I will be equal to 3. So we printed to console I value when it was 0, 1, 2. And when it become equals to 3, we break the loop. After that, program executes next line after the loop. And here's another iteration statement. What you need to know about break statement is that it breaks the closest loop. Here you can see nested loop. When j equals to 3, we break the loop. Based on the console output you can see that main loop is not stopped, because this line is still executed 5 times even despite that we have break statement here. That means that every time j equals to 3, we break the loop, but only nested one. So we still have 5 iterations of main loop, but every time we come to the nested loop, we break it after 3 iterations. Now you know everything you need to know about jump statements. Today we'll discuss what are labels in Java and how you can use them. Labels in combination with break and continue statement allow us to implement some kind of go-to statement in Java. But first of all, what is go-to statement? Go-to is a statement in different programming languages which allows you to pass control of execution to any line in your code without any condition. The jump to lines of code are usually identified by labels. But using of go-to considered to be a bad practice. That's why in Java, go-to is reserved keyword, but never used. Why it is considered to be a bad practice? Because code which contains go-to statements is less readable and it is harder to maintain. Also, it is extremely hard to test code with go-to statements. But in Java we have labels. We can use labels to break the loop marked with specific label or to continue another loop. I would say that labels with break statement in Java is more structured form of go-to statement. You're already aware that break statement breaks only closest loop. But in case you have multiple nested loops, how you can break the main loop? Labels will help you to do this. Let me show you how you can do this. In this example we have 2 loops here. One loop is nested. And we have 2 labels. Label is any valid Java identifier followed by a colon. We have loop 1 and loop 2 here. Once we have labeled block of code, we can use labels as a targets of a break and continue statement. In this case, if counter in nested loop is less than 3, we continue our execution from this block. And this is just an example. In real life you can continue execution from any block you wish. But in case our counter in nested loop is equal to 3 or more, we break our main loop. That's why in console output you can see that we managed to print iCounter only once in console. And the main loop was broken by this statement. So now you know how to use labels. Let's recap what we have learned in this section about loops. We learned how to use 4 types of loops. We also discussed how we can use nested loops, jump statements and labels. Now let's review your homework. Recommend you read books, chapter about loops, and here are 3 coding exercises for you to practice. We will review solution for these coding exercises together. In this video we'll review solutions for coding exercises. To practice writing loops, you had 3 coding exercises. I will share with you links to the source code of the solution. Here is a solution for printing digits from number in new line. I just read string from console and iterating over char array. Let me run it. I enter random number. And here is the result. Here is a solution of the second task with creating of pyramid in console. You need to use nested loops here to implement this task. I saw that my students solve this task in different ways, but in my opinion, this solution is the most readable and easy to understand. Let me run this program. I set height of the pyramid to 5, and here is the result in console. And here is the solution of printing matrix to console. Again, we need to use nested loops to solve the task. Let me run the program. And here it is. That's all. Take a look at the source code, run it on your computer, try to understand it, and ask questions or clarifications in comments.
Today we start super important topic. Many even senior software engineers couldn't apply and practice all aspects of this knowledge. Because to understand this topic from all sides you need to practice a lot. As you get more experience, all information which I'm going to share with you will start make sense. I spent a lot of time to select the right wording to make complex things easier. And today I will try to explain you object-oriented programming. So today let's start from OOP basics. In this lesson we'll learn theory and I will explain you in simple words what object-oriented programming is. Today we are going to discuss what object-oriented programming means, and it is always better to understand first why we need OOP and how it can help us in creating software. We'll briefly discuss functional programming approach so you would be able to understand the difference and better understand OOP approach. And taking into account that this is lesson about OOP basics, we'll talk about key object-oriented programming principles. So, let's start. Let's come up with definition of OOP first. There are multiple definitions of what is OOP. I'm going to share with you different ones and my own. Wikipedia tells us that OOP is programming paradigm based on the concept of object. Other definition of OOP is the next one. OOP is a computer programming model that organizes software design around the objects, rather than functions. This definition clearly describes the difference between OOP and functional programming. We'll talk about functional programming a little bit later. My own definition sounds like this. Object-oriented programming is a software design approach in which concept of object occupies the first place. In each definition we see that the concept of object is mentioned. Okay, then let's find the answer on the next question. What is an object? In object-oriented programming, everything is an object. Array is the object. Connection to database is the object. Unexpected situation during the program execution is the object. But this definition is very vast. We need more specifics. And let me simplify the definition of the object. Imagine a car. A car has doors, headlights, body, wheels, trunk, engine inside it, steering wheel, color, and lots more. What we have just described is called data structure. We describe something abstract with key properties which allow us to distinguish car from plane. Right now we have nothing more than list of properties which brings us to specific data organization that enables efficient access and modification. We can change wheels if we want, or we can change color of the car, but this will be still a pure data structure in our program. What does this car need to become an object? This car needs to have behavior which will allow to manipulate with its own data, the properties we have listed. We call this behavior methods. Imagine that car has such behavior as turn on the headlight, or start engine, or turn right, or turn left, and so on. In case our car has such behavior, we can call it the object. Now let me share with you my own definition of object. Object, first of all, is a virtual entity with specific list of properties which can distinguish it from other objects and behavior which allow to manipulate with these properties. In other words, data plus behavior equals to object. Does it make sense? Object is always an instance of some specific class. Things become more interesting, huh? Now we need to understand what a class is. I will try to explain what class is in few words, because we are going to have separate lesson dedicated to classes. But you need to understand the concept of the class now to understand what object is. Treat to a class as to template for an object. Imagine you are a car manufacturer, and you need to create millions of cars. You know that each car will have color, wheels, body, headlights, engine, and lots more. We also know that cars should be able to drive,
start and stop engine, accelerate, brake, and so on. We have just described a class for a car with properties and behavior, but each car might have different color, different body, petrol engine or diesel engine or electric one. Besides that, each car can drive radically differently. I believe now you understand that object always an instance of some class. If you understand this, we are ready to move on. Probably you are interested what other approaches for software development exist. One of the most popular programming paradigms is functional programming. If in object-oriented programming our main concept is object, in functional programming our main concept is function. In other words, functional programming is not bothering about grouping data together with related behavior and about describing of control flow. We have specific task and we have specific function that can deal with this task. Functional programming expresses the logic of a computation. Which approach is better? This is wrong question, because it is not complete enough. The right question is, which approach is better for some specific task? Because functional programming approach works the best where you don't care about order of functions execution. For simple data manipulations, functional programming solution in some degree is easier and faster to implement. Sometimes it is even easier to support. But for complex enterprise solutions, functional programming approach can turn your project maintenance into a nightmare. Object-oriented approach allows you to organize your code and program execution in structured way. During the course we'll discuss with you different clean code techniques which relies on basic OOP principles. So now I believe you understand the difference between OOP and functional programming. Let's name exact reasons why and when we need to follow OOP design. Nowadays you can't implement mobile application or web application if you don't understand OOP approach. OOP in most cases is the most natural and pragmatic approach. I'm not trying to say that OOP is the one true way. I just want to highlight the list of advantages which in most cases helps to solve even complex software development tasks. Modularity. In case something goes wrong in your program, you know where to look. Are there problems with calculation of personal discount for user? We need to take a look at user object. If you would follow key OOP principles, your code will be structured. OOP allows you to have low coupling in your code and high cohesion, which makes maintenance of your code much easier. Scalability. Because of modularity and if you follow OOP design principles, you can scale your software easily and in predictable manner. If you don't follow OOP approach, adding of new piece of functionality in your program may cause significant changes in all existing code, which in turn increase risk of new defects associated with those changes. Lower cost of development. OOP design allows you to reuse code. When you reuse code, you decrease number of places where potential defects can appear. Also, you spend less time to reuse already existing method than to write new method from scratch. Security and reliability. Basic OOP principles allow you to hide details of implementation from user of your objects. OOP design allows you to build robust design with independent modules. That in turn makes your software more secure and reliable. Definitely, when you become senior developer, you would find disadvantages in OOP. But when candidate starts arguing with me during the interview and hating OOP approach, usually I ask him what is better for some imaginary business case. And these people always lose this fight. Because you need to understand that programming is always just a question of trade-offs between maintainability, scalability, speed of development, code quality, and reliability. And now, when you understand on a high level what is object-oriented programming and why we need to learn it, let's review basic OOP principles. They are inheritance, encapsulation, polymorphism, abstraction. Let's go one by one. Inheritance. To understand inheritance, let's consider the next example. Do you remember we discussed class of the car earlier in this lesson? And now imagine that you need to create not sedan, but sport car, or family car with extra seats. Would you describe class for sport car from scratch? You don't need to do this, because sport car also going to have 4 wheels, also going to have engine, but something would be different. Most likely you are going to have only 2 seats in the car, and additional attributes of the sport car like spoiler, probably clutch pedal for sport manual transmission and something else. I believe you got my point. Inheritance allows you to create new class based on another one. New class can extend existing one and share properties and behavior. New class is called child class and basic class is called parent class. Inheritance allows you to reuse code and to create new classes without reinventing the wheel. Encapsulation. The key principle tells us to keep data and code that can manipulate this data together. It is also about keeping data and the code safe from external interference. To understand it better, let me demonstrate encapsulation in real life. You have a car. Car is a separate object, and there is a gas pedal in it. Gas pedal is external interface which sets the way how we'll interact with our car. When we push down gas pedal, a lot of things happen. Throttle is opening to let some air in, meanwhile fuel is fed to intake manifold, sensor regulate when throttle should be closed, and so on. And everything is done to accelerate your car. Do you see how many details are encapsulated from you inside the car? But you don't care. You don't want to control all these actions. You just want to push gas pedal to accelerate your car. And you don't have access and control how much fuel to feed in different cases. You let your car handle such kind of questions. Do you understand better now what is encapsulation? In programming, access modifiers exist to facilitate the encapsulation of components. For example, in Java you have next access modifiers. Private, the strictest one. You have access to fields and methods only within the specific class. You can't access private elements outside of this class. Default, access level within the same package. Elements with default access modifier can be accessed outside of the package. Protected, access level within the package and outside of the package in the child classes. Access outside of the package and outside of a child classes is not possible. Public, access level from everywhere. You can access elements with public modifier from within the class, outside of the class, within the package, and outside of the package. To keep focus on the basic OOP principles in this lesson, we'll discuss only theory. In the next lessons, we'll make a deep dive into practice part, including access modifiers. I believe now it is clear what does encapsulation principle mean. The next principle is polymorphism. Let me explain polymorphism in simple words and again with car example. Imagine you have two different cars, one with electric engine, another with petrol engine. Both are going to have button Start Engine. In both cases behavior will be similar. Engine will be started and you will be able to drive. But the way how engine will be started is completely different. In car with petrol engine, car's system will feed fuel to the engine to start it. In car with electric engine, a huge blast of power will drive your car. Or like it's shown on the slide, you have steering wheel, and each car has. But the way how steering system work is different in each car in this example. You can have single interface but multiple implementations. Do you feel what polymorphism is all about? The same word can mean different things in different contexts. What we have just discussed called method overriding. You override behavior. In the separate lesson I am going to show you how polymorphism works in Java. For now, I need you to understand the concept of OOP and basic principles. And the last but not the least principle is abstraction. In some literature this principle even not mentioned as a basic OOP principle. But I believe we can consider this principle as important as other ones we discussed. Let me explain you what abstraction is. If I would ask you what is the difference between a car and a plane, what would you say? You would try to list some key features of a car and a plane. You are trying to come up with abstraction which should be enough to differentiate car and plane. Create abstraction which works the best for your business needs. It is not easy thing to do. But if you create good abstraction for a specific case, it would allow you to not duplicate code, to support good scalability of your units and lots more. This principle is a very important one, and it requires time to use it in the right manner. Let's take a look now what we have learned today. Today we learned what is OOP and what is the difference between object-oriented and functional programming. We discussed advantages of OOP and why we need to learn it. And what is also very important, we learned basic OOP principles. That's all what I wanted to share with you in this lesson. This is our start of learning of object-oriented programming. I would be glad to recommend you literature to read as your homework, but I wouldn't recommend you read anything so far. My opinion, the topic of object-oriented programming in majority books described chaotically. By saying this, I mean in books a lot of terms, code structures, new keywords which we are going to learn are mixed in the same chapters. I spend a lot of time thinking on the structure of lessons and how to explain OOP to my students. And my experience of teaching proves that the sequence of lessons which I suggest brings a clear vision of OOP in the shortest possible time. So now, make sure you understand content of this lesson before we move further.
Hello my friend, I wanna congratulate you with successful course completion. I would much appreciate if you support me by liking and sharing this video with your friends and social networks. Also, subscribe to this channel and enable notifications to not miss other free tutorials that I'm going to share with you. If you wanna learn more, I encourage you to enroll in my The Most Complete Java course. This tutorial is just the beginning of the full course. In case you are interested, you can find links down below. Also, in our Learn IT online university, you can find many other courses that will help you to bring your skills to the next level. You can find my contacts in the description to this video. I wanna stay in touch with you and guide you through this amazing journey. Who knows, probably in the next year or two we'll run an amazing startup together. Thank you and have a great day, my friend. Hope to see you in my full course. Bye.